What's going on YouTube? JT's Reborn here, and welcome into my Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 1 full-blown review. Now, I've already done videos on each episode of the series, kind of reviewing them week to week, but with this video, I figured I'd kind of take all those videos, compile them all into one thing, so if you haven't had the chance to check them out, if you want to see them again, here they all are in one giant video. But I kind of want to add a little bit of an intro because I think it makes it a little bit more exciting than just copying them and pasting them all together. I kind of want to add a little something extra for those who are sticking around if you want to see it again. But overall consensus, I thought Monarch's Legacy of Monsters Season 1 was a pretty good start to the series in terms of the first live-action MonsterVerse series. I thought they did a really good job with it. Now, this isn't the first TV series. Obviously, we have Skull Island, the anime, which I do hope gets a Season 2, and at the time recording this video, Monarch has not been greenlit for Season 2, so we'll have to wait and see which direction they go in, but I am hopeful that we will get a Season 2 of the series at some point. I thought Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell playing the character of Lee Shaw was by far the best human character we have ever gotten in the MonsterVerse, and we just need more of Shaw. Shaw was great, fantastic. He has his faults and all that, but he was interesting, charismatic, exciting, always wanted to kind of do the right thing and take action and no-nonsense stuff, and great, fantastic. Anytime one of the Russells was on screen, I thought it was really interesting. I thought the 50s stuff was stronger than the present-day stuff in terms of the characters being more likable, and I like seeing kind of the origins of Monarch. But the modern-day stuff definitely had some good stuff to it as well, especially the way things all tie together within the final episode. I thought the final episode, they really stuck the landing with this series. It's by far the best episode, and it's very emotional, very, I got choked up in the finale because it was so beautifully done, and plus you get Godzilla, and yeah, we could use some more monster stuff throughout the series, I think. Hopefully the next season does. I know they don't have quite the amount of budget that a film has per se, but for what they were able to show, my goodness, the VFX look fantastic. I mean, Godzilla looks just as good as he does in the movies, and it all is handled so well when you get to see him. I mean, when he shows up in the finale, I was legitimately cheering in my seat watching, yeah, get him, get him! And he comes in heroically, but he appears through this portal like he's Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, and it's really awesome, and it's such an iconic Godzilla shot. It's something I haven't really seen him do before, but it is really, really cool, and I also like the music as well. Granted, we don't have classic Toho Kaiju themes in this thing, but Leopold Ross's score certainly grew on me as the series kind of went on. I mean, the track Homecoming, I thought the theme music was really catchy, and it's I keep humming it as it kind of goes do 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 do, and I just grew to enjoy myself watching the series as it kind of went on. There's certainly some lesser moments for sure, and definitely some weaker episodes, but the show definitely achieved a lot of good in terms of world building for the MonsterVerse, because when you make the jump from King of the Monsters to Godzilla vs. Kong, there's a lot of stuff, there's a big huge leap, and this definitely lays the foundation for how a lot of that stuff kind of came to be. Sure, there's some continuity flubs at times. I look back to episode 3 during the Castle Bravo stuff, because if you watch Godzilla 2014, Godzilla kind of just, as he's standing up, the bomb goes off. But here, we actually get to see him stand out of the water and kind of stare at it for a minute. Now, I liked what they did here more so than in the opening credits of 2014, but like I said, there's a few continuity flubs, but you just kind of have to roll with it. I look at it as the Evil Dead series, where it's kind of the same thing, and there's always going to be some flubs, but you kind of get the basic idea, if you will. So, overall consensus, like I said, I enjoyed this season. Hopefully they do greenlight a Season 2 of this, and also the Skull Island anime. I enjoyed this one more than the other series, but the other series was a lot shorter and definitely had more monster action, so you gotta take it with, you gotta, whichever one's more your preference. But I think, too, because we also spent more time with this one as well. I am hopeful we get more stuff. Hopefully Apple greenlights this thing, because I'm excited. I mean, the MonsterVerse has so much untapped potential. I mean, they introduced us to some new realms. I think Access Mundi really kind of changes things for the series quite a bit, because it's not quite the Hollow Earth, and it's not quite the Surface Earth, and things function differently within that realm. And so I want to see it explored more. What are we going to do with this thing? What are the consequences of it and all that? So a lot of things you can do with it. I'm hopeful for a Season 2, and plus that final shot of the season. How can you not be excited and smile for what happens? So there you go. There's my quick little intro. What did you think of Season 1 of Monarch? Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit the bell for notifications, all other fun stuff. I will see you all later. Enjoy the rest of the episodic reviews, which I've already done, but if you want to see them again, great, fantastic. Help get the channel more viewership. Whatever works. But anyways, thanks so much, everyone. I will see you all in the next video. Peace out. Hey everyone, Sean here, JT is Reborn, and this is going to be my first ever review on the all-new, brand-new Monarch TV show. So in this video, this past week, the first two episodes of the first live-action MonsterVerse series, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, dropped on Apple TV+. The third episode premieres on Wednesday. So in this video, you'll see my little breakdown of what happens in the first two episodes, and I'll give my overall thoughts and theories and opinions and all sorts of other things that we can talk about within this thing. So, overall consensus within the first two episodes, I'm really quite enjoying it. I think the human storyline is very interesting. There's a big mystery. The cast so far has done pretty well. The effects-wise, between like with the way the Titans look and the way it's shot and production values, I mean, this is a top-tier production thing. I mean, it looks like a big cinematic movie, and so far so good. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, give a quick recap of episode 1, what happens in there, and then I'll kind of give some speculation things and talk about some things, and then we'll move right into episode 2. So I'm not sure how these videos are going to turn out. I guess I'll try and keep them voiceover focused. But again, it's my first time trying to cover like the Monarch TV series, so I mean, I'm sure I'll kind of figure it out as the more episodes air. So after this week, after the first two episodes premiered, then we'll go straight into like episode 3 next week, and then kind of move on from there. And then every single week I'll get a Monarch video out. So I guess it'll be voiceover. So let's go ahead and get started, I suppose. So the first episode, it opens up on Skull Island, and we see John Goodman reprising his role as Bill Randa from Kong Skull Island. We get to see a part of the Skull Island adventure we never really knew about. We see him kind of like, this has been a clip that's already been released online. It's him like talking about like leaving some sort of legacy, hence the title Monarch Legacy of Monsters. And he's recording something on his camera, and he has this bag full of files, and he ends up getting chased by some other longlegs, you know, kind of like that scene in Skull Island. And he runs all the way to the shoreline or whatever, and like he's about to get taken down by this thing, so he throws his files into the oceans, and just he's about to get killed by a manaclaw, or one of these mother longlegs. Some sort of manaclaw creature comes out, and the two monsters fight, and then they crash into the ocean. And then you see Randa, he's kind of looking out, and you see his files kind of drift away somewhere into the ocean, only to be discovered like 30, 40 years later in 2013, with a lot of fish, of course. And those files later end up in the possession of his son, Hiroshi Randa. And then we get the opening theme music. So, pretty cool opening. We get some Titan action right there. Nice to see John Goodman back, which was a genuine surprise when I saw him in the trailer for the series. And then we cut to many years later. So, the setting of the show is kind of like jumps around to different timelines. We open up on Skull Island. We did get a brief little Kong stock footage cameo. So, Kong does technically appear in this series. And then we cut to 2015, so this is after G-Day. This is kind of dealing with the fallout. It's kind of the world-building stuff we didn't really have time to fully explore in the movies. That's what the show is going to kind of do. So we're introduced to a character by the name of Kate Randa, so Bill Randa's granddaughter, one of them at least, or one of his grandkids. She's traveling from the United States to Tokyo, Japan to settle some affairs of her father. Her father's name is Hiroshi, so that's Bill Randa's son that we come to find out he had a wife with a woman named Kiko. So he's off, like she's off to settle affairs. She goes into like she finds out that he had a lease in some building in Japan. She goes to investigate, and as soon as she opens up, she discovers that there's a woman and another person living there, which turns out to be her half-brother Kentaro and his mom Emiko. So it turns out that her dad Hiroshi had a secret family that neither side knew about, and so there's kind of this like interesting mystery going on with it and kind of the shady stuff. What I also really liked about this is we get to see some of the fallout and how the world changed immediately after Godzilla's attack in San Francisco. Since the setting is 2015, you know, Kate, she has some PTSD. Turns out she was on the Golden Gate Bridge when Godzilla attacked it. And we also get to see kind of the darker side, because I know if you watch 2014, Godzilla like stands up and then he stops the missiles from kind of hitting these kids in a way, but not every kid was so fortunate as Sam Brody was in that movie. So, like, he gets hit by some missiles or whatever, and then he kind of, like, crashes through the bridge, and there's some kids on a bus, and Godzilla's just like, fuck them kids, and the kids kind of, like, in the bus crash down to the middle of the ocean, and Godzilla kind of roars. Like I said, the VFX here are pretty good. It's definitely a bold way to kind of start the series, showcasing, like, it's not, like, an intentional thing that he tries to do. I also kind of like the memes I've seen online of some people like he's innocent and all that. And to be fair, the bus driver did kind of get like knocked out. So I mean, you could have like gotten the kids off, like, because Kate was off the bus, and then there's some other people she was able to get off, but like not everyone in time. So yeah, it's just kind of like a shady scenario, because like I said, it's not like he's intentionally like targeting like anything. It's just the collateral damage fallout, because this is a big giant monster. So her going to Japan, like I said, we get to see some of the world building, kind of the fallouts, like people getting sprayed with stuff on the plane. Japan has all these defense force things kind of set up, like missiles within the city, preparing for some sort of Titan attack. Now, we know Godzilla doesn't publicly show face for like 5 years, but Monarch knew of stuff that was kind of going on in between. So we know he's not going to attack Tokyo if you follow kind of the comics and like you watch King of the Monsters. But they are prepared for things. Like I said, there's a scene where she kind of experiences some PTSD from the attack and goes into a panic mode, because they all have these shelters in Japan. So Japan is probably the most prepared place for these Titan attacks. But again, it's the world building stuff, the interesting things. We also see Kentaro, like I said, is her half brother. That is Hiroshi's son in there. And we also meet like Emiko. So like I said, there's already an interesting angle. Like, whoa, okay, so this woman here has like a half brother that she didn't know about. Like these two are like kind of confused. Like, wait a minute, what was her dad really up to? Finding out, like, can you imagine like the reaction you have is you find out your father had like a secret family all the way off in Japan that nobody ever knew about. So a lot of shady parental figures within the Monarch organization as we come to see. And that's one of the things I do like about this series, is we get to see kind of like the darker side of Monarch, something that the movies didn't really showcase too much, the CIA government cover-up thing and all the crazy stuff there. So Kentaro we're also introduced to a girl named May, who is a computer hacker, and after breaking in these files, she gets a ping from Monarch. The show, of course, is set over the course of 2 timelines. So the present day stuff, well, kind of present day, back in 2015, that's the Kentaro storyline with Kate and that. So that's their mystery there, is like Bill Randa's files. Then we flash back even further, so we went from the 1970s, and then we also flash to the right after 2014 and 2015, and then we go to the 1950s. This particular opening bit right, or this portion of the episode is set in 1959. So the 3 characters, we have young Bill Randa, we have a character by the name of Lee Shaw, who's a character that actually did first appear in Godzilla Awakening. And then we also have Kiko Randa, who, you know, as you know, is Bill's wife, and then Hiroshi's mother, if you will. And so again, this is the young Lee Shaw, played by Wyatt Russell. Kurt Russell plays the older version of him. This part is set in Kazakhstan, 1959. They're investigating some potential Muto activity, at which point these little monsters known as like endoswarm creatures like break free from their shells, if you will. And then we see Kiko get kind of dragged under, and then that's basically, and she's kind of seemingly dies, and that's kind of like the end of that particular episode. So episode 1, really good start, really engaging human storyline here, which is a plus. Great VFX throughout. I mean, like I said, this thing looks really movie quality. There are some questionable continuity kind of flubs, such as the group calling them Titans back in the 50s, which, I mean, they didn't really call them that until King of the Monsters, because before they were called Mutos, but it's so minor. And the human storyline is kind of interesting enough to kind of carry things, so I wouldn't really kind of worry about it. But like I said, for me, like, between the 2 episodes so far, I'm more interested in the 1950s stuff than I am the present day stuff. But the present day stuff automatically gets more interesting by the end of the 2nd episode when they bring in Kurt Russell. Because like I said, the 3 human leads, the actors are doing a pretty good job. I think I need a little bit more on their end to make them a little bit more interesting. But the stuff of the 50s, like I said, that's the more exciting stuff for me personally following. But it's going to become better in the present day once you add in Kurt Russell. So that was episode 1. And now going to episode 2, I guess I'll kind of talk about these in 2 separate timelines, if you will. So episode 2 answers a question that's been kind of bugging me and various MonsterVerse fans for many years. What happened to the USS Lawton? You know, the ship that Bill Randa mentions in Kong Skull Island? He's like, you ever hear the USS Lawton? Neither did the public. Out of the 1,000 young men on this ship, I was the only survivor. So, and he even introduced some kind of, because he even showcased some photos of the ship, which I'm starting to question, like, what is the legitimacy of those photos? How do they kind of end up being where they're at? Because when you discover the ship in this episode, it actually is in the middle of the jungle, but those photos showcased it like on the shoreline and some claw marks in there. So I'm wondering how that all kind of comes to be and kind of fits in terms of the timeline, but I'm sure we'll get some answers. But we at least get to see the monster that caused this. So as you know, in the previous episode was 1959, so it's 7 years, and then this episode opens in 1952 Manila with a young Lee Shaw, where he gets ordered to act as a military escort for a Dr. Kiko Mura. This is the woman who would later become Bill Randa's wife. So her and Lee are investigating some radiation patterns in the Philippines. This is where they first are introduced to a young Bill Randa, who we find out is a cryptozoologist, and he's investigating the same things. Lee kind of has enough of this nonsense, and then he's just like, I'm going to get out of here. I'll send somebody back. I'm done with this stuff. So Randa are off kind of investigating. They kind of find some things that kind of line up with each other, and this is where they end up discovering the USS Lawton in the middle of the Philippine jungle, thousands of miles from where it supposedly sank. And as you know, Bill Randa was the only survivor. And so this is exciting to me. Like, this is finally answering the question that's bugged me and MonsterVerse fans for many years. What sank the Lawton? And it turns out to be a creature known as the Ion Dragon. This thing looks really cool. I think he's kind of adorable, but it kind of lives there on the ship. I don't know how I brought it there. Maybe this is an infant or something, but you kind of see like these bodies that are kind of like decomposing within the ship, if you will, kind of preserved in this like mucousy substance or whatever. And so like by the end of this, like once Shaw kind of notices things, there's like a bit of an action sequence. He helps save Randa's life, and then he becomes a believer, and we discover a cool new Titan. So that's the stuff in the 50s. And then cutting to the present day stuff. So Kentaro, after the whole like issue with Kate and all that, he finds some more Monarch stuff in his dad's office, showcasing a photo of a young Lee Shaw and some stuff from the Philippines. This is most likely the Philippine footage of Godzilla. So Kate then gets confronted by a guy named Tim, who was working for Monarch, who wants the Monarch files belong to Bill Randa. He seems very shady, and he tries to kidnap Kate, who escapes from him. They also try to confront Kentaro and his mom, but he escapes and regroups with Kate and in May, where they find out where Lee Shaw's at. And then we get the older version of him, played by one of my favorite actors, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kurt Russell, who is basically being kept under house arrest in this Monarch retirement home of sorts. It's like a prison here, but it's a nice one. So, but everything's kind of monitored, and like they don't want him quacking or anything like that. So the episode kind of like, at least the modern day section, ends with him kind of cutting off his ankle bracelet that's been kind of monitoring him. And based on the stuff we know about episode 3, it seems that they're headed to Alaska in search of the truth about Hiroshi Randa. Perhaps he is still even alive, because from what the characters know is that like he kind of just disappeared on something in Alaska, but you never found a death certificate or anything like that. So it's possible he is still alive in this series. So I'm really excited to see how that kind of unfolds. Also, one thing that's interesting is Kurt Russell's supposed to be playing a character who was like 90 years old. And like it kind of makes me wonder if there's some sort of thing affecting the aging of the characters in the series. Perhaps the Titan radiation. Because like I said, you go from Bill Randa in the 1950s, the young version of him, and then to Kong Skull Island. He looks really, really kind of like a lot older in that scene. But then you look at Kurt Russell. I mean, granted, Kurt Russell has very good genetics. I mean, the man is like aged very gracefully for being like 72 years old. But there's still kind of something like mysterious about it. It makes you wonder if there's something kind of prolonging the lives of some people and some things affecting the age of others. So that's sort of the stuff that I really kind of like intrigued to see where the series kind of goes from here. So I like the fact that we're getting the shadier side of Monarch, because again, the movies never really showcased this. I wonder if like Serizawa really knows anything about this sort of stuff here. But again, it's an interesting mystery so far. There's been a few, like, I mean, some people may like want more monster action, but again, this is a series, so they got to space it out over the course of the 10 episodes. But for a 2-episode start to the series, I have been enjoying this series quite a bit. Like I said, there's an exciting mystery going on here. We get to see the fallout of like 2014 a little bit more in depth than we did in like King of the Monsters, because obviously King of the Monsters Monarch has kind of gone public. So what I'm thinking about these files are, this is what like initially they're going to be the people who release the files to the public, and we'll get to see the fallout of that. And then obviously King of the Monsters is 5 years after this one, so like I mean the world's kind of already gotten used to all this stuff with the Titans and all that. But there's some interesting stuff at play here. Again, I'm excited to see where the next episode goes. It's going to be airing on Wednesday. But again, we got some answered questions that have been bugging me. We got to see the monster that affected the USS Lawton. I am curious to see when they do the first intro to Godzilla, like the first in timeline where like humanity discovers Godzilla, because we're not quite there yet, because it's 1952. Because if you remember in 2014, he's like, in 1954 we awakened something. So like I wonder where Godzilla is going to like factor in, like are these going to be the first people that meet him or something like that. I don't know, there's a lot of big mystery stuff. Again, I think there's also some stuff going around with the characters' ages, like some have aged more gracefully than others, and maybe that's a secret within the Monarch files that was kind of kept from them. But yeah, so like I said, we get the crazier, like kind of scarier side of Monarch with the kind of like doing some more shady stuff, like I said, with what they did with Lee Shaw and all that. Because Monarch has been painted more in a positive light in the movies, but here we get to see kind of the grittier, like darker side of Monarch that we didn't really get to showcase there, and that's one of the more exciting aspects of it. And also seeing the collateral damage fall, which we did kind of see in King of the Monsters with like, you know, Mark Russell and his son Andrew, but we didn't really see that happen. Here we actually saw the bus kind of go over, and we get to see like Kate's PTSD, if you will. So there's some exciting stuff at play here. I think the cast is pretty good. I've liked the 50s stuff more than the present day stuff because, like I said, that's the more kind of exciting, mysterious stuff that I'd like to see. But the present day stuff is pretty interesting too with the human storyline. And of course, now that they've added in Kurt Russell, it's going to get a lot better. So they'll probably because, like I said, the 50s stuff was a little kind of up here, and then the present day stuff was kind of down here a little bit. Not too far off, but I mean, the 50 stuff is more interesting beforehand, but now that you got Kurt Russell in there, it's just only going to get a lot better from there. So, very good show, good performances all around. Like I said, I like Wyatt Russell and I like Kurt Russell, the young Bill Randa, and seeing John Goodman and all that. There's a lot of exciting stuff within this series, and I think the human stuff is keeping me entertained when the monster stuff isn't going on. Yeah, I'd still like a little bit more monster action, but like I said, this is a series, so you have to kind of get audiences invested in the human stuff to make that compelling. Because even without the monster stuff, there is an interesting story at play here. So the monster stuff is just kind of the icing on the cake. And like I said, seeing the different aspects of Monarch that we didn't quite showcase within the films kind of makes this a little bit more interesting line. So, but anyway, so big thumbs up for me from the first 2 episodes of the live-action MonsterVerse Monarch series. I'm excited to see this series go on for the next 8 or so weeks, and then I think it's going to end up in January. But like I said, from what we got so far in these first 2 episodes, I'm really hooked. I watched the episodes twice. Great VFX, great performances all around, intriguing storyline, and seeing aspects of the MonsterVerse that we didn't really have time to explore in the film. So I wonder if other MonsterVerse characters like Sarah Zowell will show up, or maybe we'll even see Alan Jonah or something. There's a lot worth exploring in this. So, but anyways, if you have watched the first 2 episodes of Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Apple TV+, what did you think of them? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit the bell for notifications, all the fun stuff. And I'll be back, I guess, next week with more Monarch videos. I want to get these 2 off in one video, so yeah, there we go. I probably have to edit this thing next, but I am excited to see where the show goes from here. Like I said, I can't wait to see episode 3. It seems that they're going to Alaska, and I'm looking forward to watching how the mystery unfolds some more in the present time and the past. So, very good stuff, very good stuff. But anyways, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace. What's going on, YouTube? JT Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. This is going to be my review on episode 3. This episode was titled Secrets and Lies. This one was directed by Julian Holmes and written by Andrew Colville. The first 2 episodes, I don't know if I mentioned, were written and directed by Matt Shockman, and Matt Shockman directed the first 2 episodes, and Chris Black was the writer on them. I'll go ahead and do what I kind of did last time. I'll talk about the 50s stuff first, and then we'll go into the 2015, I guess more so the present day stuff. But overall consensus, I thought this was a really fun episode. I mean, Kurt Russell, man, I knew he was going to be awesome in this thing, but I feel like by the end of this series, Shaw's going to end up becoming the best human character in the MonsterVerse. He will be cemented as that, because like I said, Wyatt plays him really well, but it's Kurt Russell. I mean, how can you not like the guy? He is one of the coolest actors of all time. He's awesome in everything he's in. Certain actors just elevate everything, and Kurt Russell, he really brings the charisma, he brings the sense of fun, he brings that humor, that likability. Like I said, he's got that Kurt Russell cool and charm to him. So, he was great. Like I said, he really livened up, kind of like what I was thinking was going to happen beforehand. Because, in the previous 2 episodes, I was really more interested in the 50 stuff. But now that you've added Kurt Russell into it, he really helped elevate the present-day stuff. Because, like I said, the actors in the new stuff, the more present-day timelines were pretty good. But, like I said, adding in Kurt Russell, he really brings the fun to the series and oozes charisma, and he's got his own motivations and stuff going on there. So I guess I'll start with the 50 stuff, and then we'll move into the present day stuff. So so the end of the last episode, episode 2, was kind of the whole Lawton thing. We had Shaw, Randa, and Kiko. That's kind of their first meeting of the 3 of them together, and they discover the Lawton. Shaw saves their lives and kind of gets them out of there, and it ended with the Ion Dragon kind of roaring in that. And then now we're jumping ahead 2 years later to 1954 to the Bikini Atoll stuff. So I am a little disappointed that we kind of just skipped over to what was happening. That last episode on a cliffhanger, I was like, ooh, how is this going to wrap up? How is this going to kind of factor in going forward? But we never really got an explanation of that. We're kind of jumping ahead to Bikini Atoll. And like I said, there's kind of a disappointment in that because I wanted to see more of the Iron Dragon. But again, I'm sure we'll probably get some sort of follow-up because there are 10 episodes in this thing. And maybe they just kind of want to it was jumped around for a little bit of a reason. But so this stuff takes place in 1954. I also want to mention something really quick. There is this really cool like transition shot, like because like I said, it kind of jumps back and forth between the different timelines of like Kurt Russell driving, and then like they kind of crossfade his face onto Wyatt's, and it's like casting like father and son as the same character years apart. It just works so well. And the shot transition, you're like, wow, you really see his dad there. Like it's genius casting. And like I said, they're both really like captivating in their performances in that. So anyway, so in the past stuff, you have young Lee Shaw, you have Kiko, you have Randa, and this is kind of them pitching to the general. I guess his name is Puckett, about like this sort of creature and how it could be kind of considered a threat of sorts. They want to use radiation uranium to kind of lure this creature out because they found a giant footprint, and this kind of like gave the general like nightmares in that, because like again, this thing could be a threat to national security of sorts. I mean, what if this thing popped up and wiped out a city? We saw kind of what Godzilla did in the present time. So eventually, like they get to Bikini Atoll, and they do get their radiation, but there's kind of an interesting like conversation between the general and Shaw, because he didn't exactly know that they were going to like drop a nuke on him. But again, this is like a nuclear test. This means to kind of wipe this thing out. And while Shaw and like Kiko and Randa want to kind of have some more time to study this thing, like they're never really kind of given the chance, because the general's like, look, we got to take this thing out before things get worse. So we get to the stuff that we kind of seen in the 2014 opening of them doing the nuclear test, because as we know, the tests were there to really kind of kill something. There is a bit of a retcon with this thing, and I know this is kind of something we're seeing a lot in the series. But in 2014, we see Godzilla kind of rise up, and then the nuke goes off in the test footage, and that's it. But in here, like Godzilla's fully kind of out of the water, because he's lured with the radiation, and he kind of like he's like I really love this bit. Like I was kind of laughing in some ways, because Godzilla's just kind of like this happy-go-lucky little. He's a lot younger in this one. He's 50 years before the events of 2014. He's kind of smiling. He's all happy. He's like, oh, look at this, a snack. Like he just sees this atom bomb. And then he's like, oh, what's going on here? And then boom, it blows up. Which, just like I said, it just, I'm sure he's probably in pain after that thing. But then again, King of the Monsters, Nukes established that like it was kind of meant to kind of revive him and restore him to power. So Kiko wasn't really happy about this thing. She wanted to take the time to study this thing and all that, because like, what if we never get another opportunity? So she was upset about that. She tried to stop the thing, but Shaw kind of stopped her. Then afterwards, Shaw meets up with Kiko and Randa, kind of like in the place where they had the giant cast footprint of Godzilla's foot, and he talks about how like in kind of a funny bit, like how Monarch has received basically a blank check funding to kind of check up on and study these creatures and discover if there's more out there. So this is how Monarch basically kind of got founded, like got the military funding. We see kind of like things that play here. I mean, you can understand where the military is coming from, because if like one of these creatures, like we've seen Titans like destroy cities in the present time, so they're just trying to be cautious. Yeah, it probably would have been more beneficial to study Godzilla before nuking him, but again, you don't really know. You kind of understand both sides, and like I said, the flashback stuff was pretty interesting. So then in the present timeline, we have Kurt Russell. Now, they did point out, like, aren't you supposed to be like in your 90s? Like, what can I say? I have pretty good genes. Now, this is something I've kind of been hinting at. I feel like there's something that's prolonging his aging, because like I said, Kurt Russell looks, he's in his 70s, and he looks really good for his age. Definitely not moving around like a 90-year-old guy. So I think there's something involving maybe like the Titan radiation, which prolongs their life, which is prolonging Shaw's in some capacity. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the big secrets within Bill Randa's files. So, opening scene in 2015, we see like older Lee, see Kurt Russell and the group kind of escaping. We also see some of the tech that Monarch has used to kind of monitor things. And there's some really good humor within this episode from Kurt Russell in particular. There's a funny scene where he tries to push this. He doesn't know where the key is for like the new cars, but it's like kind of like those start and push buttons. And there was, like I said, there's a really cool transition shot from Kurt to Wyatt, and you see like just why casting the both of them like as the older and younger versions works so well. Like I said, Kurt Russell, he's the main standout of this episode. He's just the king of cool, and I'm really glad to see him in the show. And I feel like by the end of this series, Lee Shaw will be cemented as the best character within the MonsterVerse if they kind of keep along this path. But, I mean, like I said, they've had an interesting human storyline with interesting characters unfolding in this thing. So then they go from Japan to Korea. We meet one of Shaw's friends named Duo. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then they go from there to Alaska in search of like where Hiroshi was last seen. Also, meanwhile, at this time, we have that guy from the first two episodes named Tim and his partner. Her name was Duval. And then they get confronted by this kind of mysterious Monarch woman. I don't know like where her authority stands within the organization. We see that Tim kind of went on this mission rogue, and like Duval didn't really know about it. There was a name drop of Dr. Serizawa within this episode, which makes you wonder like what's really going on with him. Is he aware of some of the more shady aspects of Monarch, or is this stuff kind of going on behind the scenes? Like, what is Tim's like end goal with these Bill Randa files? Like, because like some of Monarch just doesn't seem to care. It's like, it's 50-year-old files, but there's something more to it. Maybe it like has something to do with like the prolonged aging, or Monarch has done some really kind of dangerous stuff. They go from there, and then we cut back to like Lee Shaw on that. They head from Korea. Like I said, there's some funny bits in there, all the way to Alaska. Kurt lands the plane, and like I said, some of the stuff with him, he just brings the fun to the episode. And then after landing the plane, they find another plane that was there. They thought it was a crash initially, but they also noticed that Hiroshi is potentially alive because they didn't find his body. And then they saw this tent that he set up, and there was also one brief moment where, like, before they kind of landed, Kentaro saw something like, but it makes you wonder if like Hiroshi's at the place he kind of saw when they were flying. So once they're on the ground kind of investigating things, Toho realized that the crash plane was not in fact a crash plane. It was in fact attacked by some sort of creature. And then he immediately goes from here to kind of run to start up their plane. But when he does, like, this new Titan, which I guess is known as the Frostvark Titan, it has a pretty cool looking design, shows up and destroys the plane. Like, it uses like its freeze powers, like he's Mr. Freeze and Batman and Robin, and just kind of shatters the plane, and it kind of ends on that bit of a cliffhanger there. So, and it was a pretty fun, exciting episode. So, other things to kind of notice, like Bill Randa, I guess, is the first person to see Godzilla and Kong. Why he didn't really mention this in Skull Island, but again, like I said, there's a lot of kind of retconning and stuff. Like, some things fit well, and then other things are just slight tweaks in here. But I guess I'm going to go by like Evil Dead logic, where the movies, like, they follow like the same continuity, but there's always kind of tweaks to like things that sort of happen. You just kind of have to roll with the punches, I guess. But anyways, the cliffhanger ending did kind of frustrate me a bit, because like now I'm like, dang it, I really want to see the next episode, so I'm gonna have to wait till next week, I guess, after I see Godzilla -1 in theaters. So that'll be like the next Godzilla thing I see. So I'm excited about like seeing that thing. There are some things where I like the timeline jumps in the past can be a bit jarring at times. I was a bit bummed out. We did skip out on the Iron Dragon stuff. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of that before we got into the Bikini Atoll testing stuff. I also would have liked to seen a little bit more build up to Godzilla's first appearance. Maybe we get to see some of that classic Godzilla music or whatnot, but that's just not the case here. Now, I'm still hopeful, because there are several episodes left, that we are going to get more stuff with the Iron Dragon and some of the other things that they kind of cut to beforehand, because the last 3 episodes have kind of like there's been sort of cliffhanger endings to like different sections within the past that they haven't fully like followed up on per se. Or, well, actually the first 2 episodes, like this last one kind of ended with them getting funding for Monarch, but we still didn't fully follow up what happened with the Iron Dragon and the Endoswarm stuff with Kiko and that. But I guess we're going to kind of get that a little bit later on. They're kind of jumping around with the editing of that, so it may take people out of it a little bit. This is kind of where the 2015 stuff is really kind of seeing some strength in numbers, because it's not jumping around so much. It's just kind of like one continuous thing, and once they added in Kurt Russell, it made it a little bit more exciting. Really good stuff. Also, once again, the VFX are pretty top tier. Like I said, Godzilla looks great. His design's slightly tweaked a little bit because he is a little bit younger from where we saw him in 2014. And also, as we know, like, nuclear energy kind of changes him a little bit. We saw that in King of the Monsters, like kind of the changing in that. He's a little bit slimmer. I guess that kind of gave him a little bit of a boost per se. As it stands, I thought this was a pretty entertaining episode. Kurt Russell, of course, as I mentioned several times, is the real standout. He's the real unsung hero of it, if you will. There's still some interesting mysteries at play. I'm still wondering what's going on with Tim and Duval. Still think there's something going on with Shaw's aging that's kind of prolonging it, because like I said, it's not just good genes. I mean, they kind of like made 2 obvious mentions to like his like looking younger per se. So there's more at play here, if you will. And plus, like I said, I'm wondering how they're going to get out of the situation with this Frostvark Titan thing and like this kind of like crazy stuff there. And I wonder if I know we're gonna see more Godzilla, because like we saw some clips in the trailer of him kind of coming out of the ground like Mothra vs. Godzilla. As it stands, I thought this was a pretty fun episode. It does end a bit abruptly, which kind of ticked me off, because I really want to get to the 4th episode now. But I mean, as it stands, I'm really enjoying Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I thought the 2015 stuff like really took a big leap forward now that they added like Kurt Russell more into the forefront of the story. I know I have to keep mentioning him time and time again, but I'm a huge Kurt Russell fan, and like I said, his performance is fantastic. And like the stuff with Kate too, like you really understand where she's coming from. There's a bit of frustration, but we also get some nice moments between her and Kentaro. We get to see like where May's at with her character. But like I said, the standout this episode was Kurt Russell. But like I said, there's some good stuff here. You get to see the siblings kind of form a little bit more of a stronger bond. And now that their plane is wrecked, how are they going to get out of this situation? Is Hiroshi truly alive? I think he is. Because, like, why would you go through all this trouble and hinting that he's still alive and just to have him, like, not be there? I feel like that'd be kind of anticlimactic. Like I said, there's still more at play here, and I can't wait to see what happens within the next episode. But anyways, those are my quick, long-winded thoughts on Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode number 3. What did you think of it? Post your comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, all the other fun stuff. I also want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. My voice is about to go right now. I'm still battling some sort of sickness, but like I said, just want to get this video out here, get it kind of recorded. Next up, you'll see a video on -1, and then Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 4 next week in terms of Godzilla. And also, I hear the Godzilla Kong The New Empire trailer is supposed to drop next week. So when that does, I will be sure to talk about it, and hopefully I can get some other people on the channel to kind of discuss it. But yep, those are my quick thoughts on it. Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for more content, hit the bell for notifications, all their fun stuff. And as always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace. What's going on YouTube? JT is reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. This video we're going to be talking about Monarch Episode 4. This one is directed by Julian Holmes, who also directed Episode 3. It's also written by Amelia Bell Hartz, and this episode is titled Parallels and Interiors. So, yes, the Monarch show is continuing. So, out of the 4 episodes so far, I'll be straight up front. This is my least favorite of the bunch. Probably because it is the least exciting, but it's not a bad episode. I actually liked it more upon the second viewing. I think maybe because the third episode was a lot more fun. This episode's more sort of like a slower kind of character-focused stuff. Mostly the Kentaro show. We get more into his past story. We see how he met May and like kind of the foundation of that relationship. There are no flashbacks within this episode, so you don't have the constant time jumping. So for some people, that's probably a plus because it can just focus entirely on the present day stuff. So I'll go ahead and quickly summarize what I do each episode, and then we'll give my overall final thoughts, and there's some mysterious things happening. Also, today, as I'm recording this, is Godzilla x Kong The New Empire trailer day. They also just dropped a new teaser trailer of sorts for Monarch Legacy of Monsters for the remainder of the season, because CCXP is currently going on at the time I'm recording this thing, but I want to get this thing recorded. So by the time this video is up and such, I'm sure the New Empire trailer will be out, and I'll probably post something on that one first, but I want to get this video kind of recorded right now, so before I move into something else. But I am excited for the remainder of Monarch this season, because I've seen some things, like Godzilla's going to be fighting the Ion Dragon based on the new trailer, so it looks like he's fighting in the Hollow Earth or something like that. It's really cool visual stuff, but I don't know how it's all gonna like tie together, but I am excited. So but anyway, so the episode opens up in 2015. We see this woman working for Monarch. Her name is Barnes, and she's getting a bunch of crazy readings, so she contacts Monarch. And what we come to find out with this stuff is there's some various spikes across the planet, and there's kind of this beam of light. It looks like the portals to kind of Hollow Earth. You know how like Godzilla versus Kong had those little kind of glowing portals that took you right into Hollow Earth? So it looks like there's a lot of emerging portals kind of coming up through the ground of sorts between the normal Earth and the Hollow Earth. So there's all these spikes across the planet. And the reason I think Godzilla is probably showing up in these things, he sees all these things kind of rising. He's going to try and keep things in check. So we have this stuff going on there. Then kind of back in Alaska, we open up with the Frostvark Titan still kind of chasing after the group. We come to find out that it is attracted to heat because Kentaro fired a flare and the thing kind of went after it. But they all try to escape. May's legs, they hide in a cave. May is standing on some kind of thin ice, and her legs fall through. And this is what leads to her kind of like getting to hypothermia. So it's about them trying to survive. The group tries to go off and find some place. Kentaro remembered on the plane, which I mentioned in the last episode, about seeing something kind of in the sky, if you will. So we also come to find out the Frostvark Titan seems to kind of have some sort of effect on its environment, and that it kind of makes people hallucinate and like see various things, and kind of like makes things a bit trippy. Because this is probably the most like I don't know, the most bizarre episode in terms of like visuals and like hallucinations and stuff like that. It's not the most straightforward per se in that regards. Like, I mean, Kentaro's hallucinating things, he's seeing kind of things. Some of the other characters are kind of going droopy, loopy, and stuff. But again, the main focus of this episode is pretty much on Kentaro. We see some flashbacks of how he met May. We find out that he was a struggling artist beforehand, trying to sell his work. His mom was there for encouragement, and there's a bit of frustration on his end between him and his dad. During one of his shows, he went to take a picture of the poster, and May just happened to walk into frame while he was taking the photo. They get into a little bit of a discussion, talk, if you will. And that kind of like is the sparking moment of their relationship. They kind of have a quick one-night stand, and then eventually I think that leads into more stuff. Like I said, that stuff's kind of like I said, if you want to know more about the characters, try and get you more invested in their story. But a lot of the episode is kind of focused on that instead of like the more mystery aspect of Monarch. But again, I understand its purpose. I want to get you like more invested in them before we kind of go forward. So there's also some kind of mysterious, intriguing stuff going on with May. Like, why was she there at that exact moment? She's like, even on her phone calls when she's off, like after she kind of has her little moment with Kentaro, she's on the phone, and there's some mysterious stuff going on with her. Maybe she has some sort of connection with Monarch. Maybe there's like a rival organization to them. I don't know. I feel like there's more going on with her character that's kind of like being hinted at. So we got that stuff going on there. She also supposedly has some stuff with her sister. So I don't know who her sister is. Maybe it'll be somebody like high up within Monarch or something like that. I don't know. It could be just a coincidence, but I feel like there's something else with that there too. We also see some scenes at Monarch where you have Tim talking about like the emergence within Hollow Earth and that. We also found out that I also kind of found out the lady's name from the previous episode where there was it was Duval and Tim, and there was that kind of woman from Monarch. I guess her name is Assistant Director Natalia Verdugo. Verdugo, I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's the character's name. But yeah, so Monarch's doing this stuff. They're trying to do their thing, and then back in the present time, so Kentaro goes off on his own little vision quest, if you will. He kind of separates from the group because he's like kind of determined to think like he saw something, and then the others kind of see this light coming up from the Earth, which looks like the portals from Hollow Earth. So half the most of the group goes. You have Shaw, you have May, and you have Kate going off to do that. Kentaro's going off and doing his thing because he believes in himself. And eventually, like I said, there's some hallucinations and kind of really trippy stuff. He finds like pencil shavings that belong to his dad, and he's able to kind of radio in for help and rescue the team. And then, of course, there's something else going on, I think, between Kate and May. They're maybe hinting at something. Like, that's the stuff that kind of bogs the episode down just a little bit here and there. So Lee Shaw finds out that it takes heat to kind of lure the Titan at one point. He decides to use some jet fuel to kind of like give this thing a big kind of like meal, if you will. Kurt Russell does have the best line of the episode where he's like, "Dinner time, you son of a bitch," and then he kind of lights it. And the thing goes after. Now, that would have been a cool way to kind of kill the Titan. I kind of wish that line was spoken before, like, you know, he kind of wiped the thing out. Or, since I am a big fan of John Carpenter's The Thing, I would have loved it if, like, the Frostmark Titan's kind of in some area, Kurt Russell throws a flare or something, and he just kind of repeats, like, his iconic line. He's like, "Yeah, well, fuck you too." And he throws, like, a flare or shoots something, and then the thing kind of blows up in that regards. Now, that would have been a bit of fan service, but I would have really loved it. So, anyway, so they do that. The Frostmark Titan also destroys the files, because, like, he was chasing after May, who, mind you, is, like, going through hypothermia and nearly dying, and kind of like sprays its freeze breath on the files, and you know, Shaw is not very happy about this sort of thing. Eventually they do escape on a helicopter, thanks in part to Kentaro, and the episode ends with them kind of meeting up with Tim, because that's where the helicopter takes them. But there's also some moment too where kind of like May is holding Kate's hand. Keep in mind, she's not thankful or anything for Kentaro, who's the one who phoned in the chopper in the first place. He also finds out that his dad is still alive, because he was the one who kind of fixed things up at this little base right here. So his dad is off somewhere. Maybe he's in Hollow Earth, maybe he's someplace else. I don't exactly like 100% know. There's a lot of theories I have kind of going on in my head. Maybe even like his mom is still alive, but she's like in Hollow Earth. That could be kind of something cool worth exploring, but I don't exactly know. Like I said, it's a big mystery, if you will. So some exciting aspects going forward. I still didn't hate this episode. Like I said, it's my least favorite of the 4 so far. I kind of was missing some of the 50s flashbacks, but at the same time, it was definitely a lot slower, a little bit more character focused. So if you're kind of invested in that storyline, you're kind of getting a little bit more stuff with that. There's not too much in terms of Titan action or anything like that. But we do get some things kind of slowly building the overall plot forward. There's some mysterious like beams of energy coming up from the Earth. Looks like the portals to Hollow Earth, if you will. Like I said, it's all one big kind of mystery. There's some exciting aspects to it, but I mean, comparatively speaking to the first 4 episodes, I just like the first 3 episodes a little bit more. Maybe the last episode might have been my favorite. Mostly, like I said, due to Kurt Russell giving his time to shine. But once again, Kurt Russell does have the best line in the entire episode. "Dinner time, you son of a bitch." But damn it, I wish they would have had a Thing reference that would, I know, like I said, it's a bit of fan service for those who love that movie, and it would have been something really funny. But like I said, from what I got, I was still entertained overall. I think there's some definite tension going to be brewing forward with Kentaro, Mei, and Kate, if you will. I don't know if they're going to turn this thing into a weird love triangle. I hope not, because I feel like that would kind of bog the show down a little bit. But I did kind of feel bad for him, because like he does do the big rescue, and like Mei just seems like, screw you, Kentaro. I'm gonna hold Kate's hand instead, because she stood by my side. But you did kind of save us. Like there's no like moment between the two of them. But hey, you know what? He's going through his own stuff, and I wish him the best. But anyways, that's all I really have to say about this particular episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit that bell for notifications. Let me know what you thought of episode 4 of the show. I don't know if I'm posting this before or after the Godzilla Kong, the new Empire trailer comes out, but we shall see. I don't know. I'm really excited. I'm stoked. I can't wait to see this movie trailer today, but the MonsterVerse is doing quite well. Like I said, I got this, -1 this past week. This is like one of the best weeks ever to be a Godzilla fan, so I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm feeling pretty good, but hope you're all having a good day. But anyways, that's all I gotta say. Tune in next week as we will talk about episode 5 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Should be fun, should be exciting, and really good stuff. But anyways, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace. What's going on, YouTube? JT Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. This time I'm going to be talking about episode 5. This one is titled The Way Out. And this episode in particular was written by Amanda Overton and directed by Mirzi Almas. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this is the latest episode of the series. This is also the first episode with no real kaiju monster titan action. If you don't count like flashback stock footage that we've kind of seen already within the show. This is a more character-focused episode. This takes place right after the events of the previous one, where our team in the present time period of 2015 was dealing with a Frostvark Titan, and they were taken away in that helicopter, and they went from there to a Monarch base in Alaska, I'm guessing. Yeah, so they went to this Monarch base, and that's kind of where the episode begins. So, much like normal, we're going to go ahead and summarize what happens in the episode. I'll give my thoughts and any sort of nitpicks or criticism I have. But going to the episode overall, I'd say compared to episode 4, I think I may have liked this one in some ways a little bit more, because we get to see some of the fallout and like kind of exploring the ruins of a destroyed San Francisco, really kind of feeling the impact and aftermath of one of these Titan attacks, like how it's like the effects of it like a year or so later, and kind of the fallout of that situation. Now I really want to see where this show will go, like post, like if we get a second season of Monarch and it's post King of the Monsters, like just seeing how cities will be like that after the result, because San Francisco is pretty bad, but it's nothing compared to what happened to Boston and some of these other cities. So hopefully the show gets to that point. We can kind of explore those different angles. But anyways, much like normal, I'll quickly summarize what happens in the episode, and we'll go from there. So Monarch episode 5, it opens up with the team being interrogated by Monarch in this base that they've been in. We also had a sequence where Duval confronts Mei, and she also uses her sister, who we've established as someone off screen known as Lyra, as some sort of influence over her. So that kind of gets played into it like later on into the end of the episode with Mei. So most of the team, we have Kentaro, Kate, and Mei, who are given the chance to leave while Lee Shaw is left behind. Tim kind of wants to use them to kind of see where they end up going. Maybe it'll lead them to more of Bill Randa's files or Hiroshi or something. So he is really after those files, but Shaw also is kind of like after them a little bit too. Like there's some more mysterious stuff with the files. So while Shaw's kind of locked up there, the group decides to head to San Francisco to find out more about the truth about Hiroshi. Mei was hesitant at first, but then she ultimately agreed. We also kind of get this one cool sequence back like at the base where Lee Shaw is being kind of interrogated, if you will, by Verdugo about like Monarch and stuff. We also get this really cool shot where like they kind of project some like stock footage, if you will, and it kind of like merges like Wyatt and Kurt's face together, kind of like that earlier transition. This is our only bit of flashback kind of footage that we get of the younger groups, if you will. The next episode, we're going to kind of go back into the 50s and that. And I'm more excited about that because not having that flashback stuff, I've kind of missed them the last 2 episodes. But I understand the importance of kind of focusing on the current characters and seeing kind of where they're at and such. So, like I said, Shaw kind of talks to Verdugo about how Monarch has pretty much done nothing of value. There's also some more references to his age, if you will, from Tim and also Duval. So clearly they're aware, like, shouldn't this guy be like, if he's 9 years old, why does he look like that? Which is something I've kind of theorized, like, they're definitely going to dive more into that. Maybe it was something with the Hollow Earth mission that has prolonged his aging, if you will. So it's definitely something I brought up earlier on. It's definitely kind of bringing more of a factor into things nowadays. So I'm really excited to kind of explore the mystery of like how that kind of came to be, if you will. So that's exciting stuff to me. So anyways, so May and them head back to San Francisco. They are then picked up by this guy named James, who is a friend of May's mom, who is known as Caroline. The more interesting, the exciting fact about this is they return to like where she's been at. You see how kind of lives in like almost like this FEMA camp, if you will, like not really like the most valued like places of living, but they haven't really left yet. And this is where Caroline, Kate's mom, learns the truth about Hiroshi. I did think it was kind of interesting kind of seeing the other side of things, because as you remember in the first episode, Kate goes and finds Kentaro and all that, and then they find out the truth that he had another family. Now we're kind of seeing the inverse of it and kind of getting the emotional reaction from Kate's mom in that, because like at first it was kind of like the screaming like panic at first when they were like, oh, I had a key and all that, and she's kind of like shocked by the whole situation. But now this time Kate has to kind of tell the news about the truth about her father. And we also find some interesting stuff about Kate in this episode as well, something that kind of like makes her more like her father than we initially thought, if you will. So like I said, they learn the truth of it, and from there they have to decide, okay, they got to get into San Francisco, but it's also like a quarantine zone. And so the group has to kind of sneak in with Caroline and James, if you will, kind of secretly, because they're like responsible for kind of retrieving people's belongings and kind of giving them back to them, because the area has been quarantined, if you will. So nobody's allowed in. They're shooting looters and that on site, if you will. So like I said, that's probably the coolest aspect of the episode, was seeing these like ruins of San Francisco and the aftermath of one of these attacks. Like it felt like a ghost town, like a post-apocalyptic area. So we also get to explore more of Kate's PTSD. She has a lot of panic attacks throughout the episode. We also learn that she was a school teacher. We also find out that she was, you know, in a relationship with another woman, which to me is not surprising given the hints of the previous episode. And also, she's a teacher and living in San Francisco. It's kind of to be expected. So we also find out that, much like her father, she was cheating on, I guess, her girlfriend, if you will. I kind of like that, like, reveal, because, like, she's mad at her dad, but she's kind of, like, doing the same thing, if you will. So that kind of adds more to her trauma and guilt in that, too. So I actually like that reveal, that she, like, in some ways is kind of taken after her dad in that way. So it'll make her kind of, like, in her eyes, more redemptive arc, all the more impactful. So I like kind of seeing that stuff about her. So anyway, so we got that stuff. Also kind of, like, while this is going on, we have Shaw. He's kind of trapped, like, at that Monarch base with Verdugo, talking about the stuff, and he brings up an interesting point here, which I kind of like too. Like, he's kind of like, Monarch is broken and all that. Like, this Monarch somehow had the smartest people on the planet having 60 years to prepare for G-Day, and the best they could come up with is let them fight. Like, he brings up a great point, like, what if Godzilla had lost? Monarch is wrong and needs to change. So I thought that was cool. There's also a nice -1 reference, if you will. So they have like the countdown, like they show kind of flashbacks to like before G-Day, like G-Day -2, and they also have G-Day -1 in there. So I thought that was a nice little touch. The part of the episode though that irritated me kind of the most though is when they sneak into this quarantine zone, and this is the part like that just I couldn't stand. So they're sneaking into this quarantine zone, and so Kentaro starts singing really loudly to kind of cheer up Kate. But this is a situation where they're supposed to be in like this stealthy situation, and they end up being found out about. Like, what the hell did you think was going to happen? Like, your mom told you that they were shooting trespassers and looters and stuff, but it annoyed me. It kind of made the character seem really dumb. I get he was trying to get to Kate and then like kind of cheer her up, but you're singing really loudly. You already confronted some soldiers in that earlier on, tried to escape them. Like, why are you trying to like give away your position? It just seemed really dumb. Like, he could have found another way to kind of like do that. Maybe he accidentally like trips over something and knocks something over he didn't see. I don't know. Like, that stuff really kind of irritated me because it just makes the characters really stupid. and it just kind of annoyed me. But anyways, Kate also, like, when this stuff's going on, they kind of flee, and then they kind of go another angle where she experiences more PTSD stuff. Like I said, she talks about how she hates her dad for leaving, but is she any better for being a cheater? There's some really good acting, like, in this scene in particular, like showcasing the panic attacks, and there's a nice moment of May trying to help her get through it. From there, they go to Hiroshi's office and find out, like, some kind of clues to, like, where he's been going. Like, you saw Alaska, you saw another location, and then you also saw Africa. So they have more clues to, like, his next location. After that, they go home. Caroline talks to Kate. They have this nice little conversation. Like, I could have found out the truth many years ago, but she didn't. And then, in a mysterious kind of way, like, the episode ends with May kind of calling Duval, and it looks like she's going to betray the group in some way, and that's basically where the episode kind of ends. So there's some good character, like, moments within this episode, I think, particularly with Kate, with her PTSD, and also finding the reveal about how she's a lot more like her father than she, like, hopes to realize. Because, like I said, she was kind of doing the cheating angle much like her dad, and I think that's, like, an interesting angle to kind of take things. And I like exploring the PTSD and the panic attacks. And like I said, Anna Sawai's acting in this episode is quite good, so we get some good moments in that regards. Although there's some kind of dumb moments in there that kind of take me out of it. Like I said, the moment where Kentaro's like, yeah, let me just start singing jingles. Like, yeah, that would be a nice moment, like, in a different location. But when you're trying to sneak around, it just irritated the hell out of me. It just made them all look, like, really stupid. So, like, that's something that just annoyed me. This is another episode with very limited, like, Titan action as well. So I think that's going to take a lot of people out of it. And again, this is a show about Monarch, but you also kind of want to see some monster stuff too. And the last two episodes have been kind of, like, lacking in that department in terms of Titan action, unlike the first three episodes where we kind of felt like we got a little bit more. But again, you got to kind of judge it as, like, one big thing. This kind of moment we're kind of exploring the characters a little bit more. So I did like seeing the ruins of San Francisco and kind of seeing a little bit more of the fallout of that. It feels like we're kind of moving a little bit further in, like, you know, the direction of things. Like I said, we had the one with Kate and her mom, which we kind of needed given, like, the stuff of, like, that happened in the first episode. We kind of get the inverse of that reveal, if you will. So there's some good stuff there. The character stuff was pretty good this episode. Just a few dumb moments, like I said, with the quarantine sneaking around and just shouting really loudly. Just, it made them all look really dumb. But again, you're still kind of left, like, wanting a little bit more, like, Titan action or appearances. Like, this is the first episode where it's just been solely all humans outside of a little bit of stock footage, so that could be a little bit of disappointing. I would have liked a little bit more of a moment too. But again, I think the next episode is going to kind of dive into that a little bit more. Hopefully we'll find out more answers about how, like, Lee Shaw's, like, age is being prolonged and stuff too. So there's some important stuff happened. May also looking to kind of betray the group will be kind of interesting because she's been kind of forming a bond with Kate, and, you know, obviously she's had a connection with Kentaro. So that'll be an interesting kind of reveal how that happens. And also I'm wondering how Lee Shaw is going to kind of jump back into the mix. He brings up some good points though about, like, how Monarch had 60 years to prepare for this stuff, and really, unless they had Godzilla, they would have been kind of screwed. So some exciting stuff there, and I guess that kind of leads into, like, future Monsterverse stuff with Mechagodzilla about how Monarch had all these had many years to prepare, but they were just, like, so ill-equipped, and the only thing that they had was their hope was Godzilla. And do you really want to rely on a giant monster, if you will? Maybe, maybe not. So, I mean, Serizawa is a firm believer in Godzilla, obviously. And we know Godzilla will be there to kind of take care of things, but he's also there to kind of keep people in check when they get kind of out of line. A lot of things worth exploring. I'm excited to see where the series kind of goes from here. Episodes 4 and 5 are probably my least favorite of the series so far. Not that they're bad or anything like that. I just kind of like the first 3 episodes a little bit more. Episode 3 is still my favorite, mostly because, like I said, Kurt Russell gets time to shine. Of course, he still has a few kind of funny lines in the episode and brings up some interesting points in that too. And he still has kind of like a mysteriousness to his character in that as well. So, but anyways, that's all I really have to say about episode 5 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. A pretty solid episode. Best aspects were exploring the fallout of San Francisco, kind of seeing the city like a year later and kind of like how the world was impacted by this stuff, and getting a little bit more of Kate's PTSD, the panic attack stuff, and finding out the reveal about how she is a lot like her father, like more than we'd realize. And of course, like, kind of seeing the inverse of her experience of finding out, like, about Kentaro, and then, like, her mom is finding out about the truth about Hiroshi. So, like, that's all exciting stuff. And Hiroshi's still got to be alive somewhere. So when they interact with him again, seeing like a man who's like had two separate families this whole time but never told me about, like that's going to be a scene I can't wait to see explored. And of course Godzilla coming back, and there's obviously that scene in the trailer where he comes out of the dirt and that too, so maybe that's going to be them in Africa or whatnot. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Next episode should be a little bit more fun. We're bringing back some of the flashback stuff with the younger versions of Shaw and Matt. I've really missed them the last two episodes because they really kind of helped made things a little bit more exciting. Feel like we got a lot of this important character stuff, like I said, some of the more slower building stuff within these two episodes. Now we can kind of jump back into some more exciting action bits and build more of the mystery of Monarch and what's really going on here. So, but anyways, that's all I really have to say about this episode. Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit the bell for notifications, all the other fun stuff. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all later. Peace out. What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. This is going to be a video review on episode 6, known as Terrifying Miracles. This one was directed by Mersey Almas, who also directed episode 5, and this episode was written by Carl Greenfeld. And I'm going to straight up say this was my favorite episode of the series so far. I thought it was a lot more exciting. I really like this episode. Goes to show how much I miss the 1950s flashback stuff, because not having them in the previous two episodes, it wasn't as exciting. And I like the 50s crew a little bit more than the present day. I mean, they're a little bit more likable, because the crew in the present day are a lot more, I guess, damaged, if you will. I mean, Kate, for example, she's a cheater, kind of like her dad. Kentaro has issues. I mean, they all have their issues, and I'm sure that they're kind of getting towards more of a redemptive arc, if you will, to kind of grow as people. But the 50s, they're a little bit more likable, and it's fun seeing Monarch in this time period, just how they're kind of evolving and trying to gain funding and how the organization kind of came to be and such, and kind of the fallout of some of the choices they make. So I don't know, I like the 50s stuff. It's a little bit more exciting in some ways than the 2015 stuff, although this episode improved a little bit more than the previous two episodes, which were kind of more slow, character focused episodes, if you will. I understand the purpose of them and what they were trying to do, but this episode was a little bit more exciting. I mean, it has more Godzilla, more Kurt Russell, more 50s flashback stuff, and just a lot more exciting stuff, and some really cool reveals too, which we'll get into in a second. So because this episode kind of jumps back and forth between the 50s and the present time, I'm going to go ahead and summarize what happens in the 50s stuff first, then move on to the present time, and then kind of give some overall final thoughts on the episode, if you will. So let's go ahead and get started on the quick recap. So the episode opens up in 1955. They're in Washington, D.C. at the American Defense Industry Federation Summer Ball. And what I like about the scene, too, they're playing the song I'm Sitting on Top of the World, which was the same song used in Peter Jackson's King Kong. So as soon as I heard that, like, my nostalgic connection to that movie just kind of, like, blew up in my head a little bit. I'm sitting on top of the world. I'm like, oh, this is King Kong. So at least that's where I most notably heard it from. So I like that song. So it was kind of a cool little touch. Lee Shaw's there at the ball alongside Keiko. Bill is off kind of working some Monarch stuff, if you will. There's some definite tension there with Keiko, who clearly doesn't like dealing with the people around her, aside from Shaw. And Shaw's like the most reasonable character. He knows how to kind of work around things a little bit. Puckett is a bit of a jerk, but they're like, even when Keiko's kind of like hating her life, just being at this ball, if you will, Lee kind of like opens her up a little bit. Like, he asks her to dance. There's a bit of a blooming romance between them. This is obviously before she ends up marrying Bill, if you will. And then there's some charm to it as well. I think it's mostly due to the actors involved and their likability on screen. It seemed like they were about to go ahead and hook up in one of Lee's rooms, if you will, but then Shaw ends up getting cockblocked by some message from Monarch, and he's like, the things I do for Monarch. So from there, they go to this little Monarch location where Bill Randa's there. He gives some information to Keiko, and it seems that a Titan is appearing in Japan, so they don't know 100% for sure. So Bill and Keiko are going to head to Japan to investigate it, and they tell Lee to stay behind to watch things. He's not too happy about it. He's more so concerned for Keiko than he is for Bill, but he has some understandable reasons. Like, those are his friends. He cares for their safety, but he has to kind of stay behind because Monarch has this financial meeting, and they need money to hunt Titans. And so they tell him, stay behind, Shaw. We got this. You got to take care of this stuff so we can have the bills to continue to do this sort of stuff. And his decision-making that he has, like, more so for his feelings, for Keiko, like, putting that above Monarch, if you will, like his personal feelings, is ultimately going to kind of cost them, in the end, that control of Monarch. So Kiko and Bill head to Japan where they meet a Dr. Suzuki who tells them to welcome to Monster Island. That was a nice little callback to some of the older Godzilla films, if you will, because, you know, Monster Island is present within those movies. So I like the callback there. And this Dr. Suzuki seems to have created something that's like a gamma radiation simulator, as they dub it in the show, basically like a Titan phone, if you will, or Titan Bates. So kind of similar to the Orca, but not 100% quite, because the Orca measured the Titan's bioacoustics, if you will, to kind of like use some sort of frequency. I don't know, they're kind of the similar in some ways, but these devices are much larger, and you don't exactly know which Titan you're going to get with it. So kind of a precursor, if you will, to the Orca in a way. So that's going on. Shaw's concerned about Keiko and them kind of going on there. He wants to be in the field with his team, but he also has responsibilities here. He's not supposed to go. He hasn't been authorized by General Puckett to go and help his team. So he goes and has a talk with Puckett. He tells them like he wants to be there to protect his team, but Puckett's like telling him he needs to kind of stay here, if you will. And if he ends up going on this mission, the choices he makes, he's going to have some sort of consequences with it. So he kind of goes against his orders, if you will, because he was not authorized to make this trip to Japan. So he decides to head there to Monster Island. But in doing so, he skipped a meeting about Monarch's financial future. His feelings for Keiko kind of complicated things, and he put his own desires above Monarch's. They do share a kiss with one another. And as this is going on, the water kind of disappears out of the bay. Their little Titan bait device, if you will, kind of just gets launched in the air. And then it's revealed that Godzilla is still alive, which we all knew based on the 2014 film and other things. So Godzilla's alive. He looks great. There's some impressive shots of him in the ocean, if you will. Kiko is just kind of thrilled. She's happy and excited that this thing is still alive. Shaw is really kind of terrified in some ways. Like, we didn't kill it. We threw our best weapon at it, and we didn't kill this thing. So there's definitely some horror in his eyes, but there's also kind of that, there's a bit of horror and kind of thrill, like, wow, like, what is this thing? Like, we threw our best weapon at this thing, and it did nothing. So that realization of where do we go from here is kind of interesting. So then they head back to the States. Shaw tells Keiko and Bill that they need to tell Puckett something. They need to tell him that this thing's alive. More so, Keiko kind of rejects it. It's like, what are they going to do? Like, build a bigger weapon and drop it on him, or are they going to drop it on somebody else? So there's some tension there involved. But Shaw's like, we need to tell him something. I wasn't supposed to go on this trip to where you were all at, but we need to tell him something. So they go in there. However, in doing so, because he went on his little unauthorized trip, Puckett handed over control of Monarch to somebody else due to Shaw's unauthorized leave of absence. And the 50s flashback stuff ends with Kiko really kind of pissed off at Shaw as a result. So I thought that was interesting. And Shaw's reasons for going are kind of justifiable in a way, because he cares about their safety, and he obviously has, he did save their lives earlier on in one of the first 2 episodes with the Ion Dragon, if you will. And he's worried about his team. Like, they're his friends, they're kind of like his family, if you will. He cares about their safety and wants to be there by their side because they're in this together. They're a trio, if you will. But putting those personal feelings into it above Monarch's feelings, like, if he would have just stayed back in the States and kind of, you know, just kind of talk things through, he could have had control of Monarch. But this is the moment where Shaw and all that lost control of Monarch, and this is where kind of the darker side, more corrupt side of Monarch kind of starts to, what's the word I'm looking for, bloom, if you will. It starts to build up in some sort of way. So I thought that was interesting. The 50s flashback stuff was exciting. I'm curious to see how the romance will shift from Shaw to Bill. Maybe it's her resentment towards Shaw. This moment was what kind of separated them from kind of growing closer together. And Shaw not only kind of lost Keiko in that way, he also lost Monarch in that way, all because he put his personal feelings ahead of what was best for Monarch, if you will. So interesting example there, really good, compelling stuff. On to the present day stuff. So the 2015 stuff opens up with Duvall intercepting a van that had the present day Lee Shaw in it, Kurt Russell, if you will. And then we kind of find out some interesting stuff about Duvall. We found out her first name is Michelle, but not only that, the big surprise reveal in this episode that I didn't see coming, Duvall had a sister, and her sister worked at Janjira, and her sister's name was Sandra, which means that her sister was none other than Sandra Bodie. That's right, Bryan Cranston's wife from Godzilla 2014, the one he has to seal in, is Duvall's sister. So I thought that was really cool, like, reveal in this whole thing, and that's kind of the reason she joined Monarch, is because she didn't want an incident like that to ever happen again, and she thinks Shaw might be the one to show her the way. So That's really cool. I didn't expect some sort of Brody family tie-in with this show like that, other than maybe showing Ford or something. But having her be Sandra's sister, I think, makes things more interesting and kind of exciting. That's one of those nice surprises that I'm so glad wasn't spoiled for me or anything like that, because I didn't expect it. I didn't see it coming. I was kind of curious about what Duvall's whole thing was, but making her the sister of Sandra Brody, I think, makes things more interesting. Also, it does kind of leave me questioning some things, because Sandra's husband, Joe, was off kind of investigating things, but Duvall never went to him and kind of like told him, like, hey, guess what? I work for this organization known as Monarch, if you will, and we have all this secret stuff going on here. Unless she joined afterwards. I don't know. When did Duvall join Monarch? Because Joe was off doing his thing. You'd think she would kind of talk to him about stuff, or maybe she went her own path and joined Monarch after all this stuff went down. I don't exactly know. It kind of leaves me questioning things a bit, but I think that's still a cool reveal. Maybe we'll find out more about that in the future, and perhaps maybe other members of the Brody family will appear in this thing. I don't exactly know. So that's going on. She brings Shaw out, and back in San Francisco, Kate, Kentaro, and May all sort of meet up, and as they head back to Kate's mom's house to head inside, guess who's sitting there? That's none other than Lee Shaw himself, Kurt Russell, and he's just there with Duvall. And he's just kind of chilling there. I kind of like his little intro there, like, hey, how's it going, if you will. So I thought that was kind of cool. But anyways, so they agree to head to the next place on the map, which they have the location to, which is none other than Africa. But while this is going on, Verdugo and Tim are in Hiroshi's San Francisco office trying to figure out where the rest of the crew is going, because they wanted them to kind of go off and kind of investigate things on their own and kind of latch onto their trail to maybe see if they can find some sort of information. Tim uses his kind of smart investigative skills, and they kind of find the location where they need to go on the map. But there's one thing that was kind of interesting too. So Verdugo reveals to Tim that Hiroshi retargeted deep space satellites to look at Earth, which kind of makes me wonder, were those maybe teasing some potential aliens in the series using deep space satellites, which were used to target some sort of gamma radiation? Now he's redirecting it to Earth, and that's how Hiroshi found the Titan breach locations. And wherever these breach locations occurred, where Godzilla was at and other Titans, there was some sort of gamma ray spike. So potential alien tease, maybe I'm just looking into it, but Ghidorah was an alien, but he's kind of already on Earth. So maybe the MonsterVerse is slowly kind of leaving breadcrumbs, if you will, for a future alien invasion type angle within the series, which after the New Empire, you gotta bring in aliens. That's the thing I want to see most. So the main group heads to Africa. There's some tension amongst the team. Kate initially doesn't want to go, but Shaw ultimately convinces her. He is the most reasonable character in the show. He gives them plenty of chances, and like, hey, if you don't want to jump on this thing, okay, there you go. You can leave. But if you want to stick around with me, we can save lives. That's what his main goal is. So he has regrets over what happened in the past, because his personal feelings kind of cost him control of Monarch and what it was originally supposed to do. And he's trying to find a way to save like thousands and millions of lives, because they know a G-Day type event is going to happen again if they can't find a way to stop it. So he's trying to save lives, and it's understandable for his reasons. It's understandable why Duvall want to go to him, and there's other people who've kind of deflected from Monarch because they don't like the direction the organization's going in. So I like that stuff. So anyways, so the group goes to investigate, and who do they end up finding? That's right, they discover that Hiroshi is alive, but he has one of those Titan phones. So I was right. I figured he was alive. I mean, some of the footage kind of showcased him in Africa and like one of the trailers, but you can't just have this lead up to wondering if he's alive and not reveal he's alive. Would have felt a little anticlimactic. So the group is really happy to see him at first, but from a distance, Shaw sees him, and he sees the Titan phone thing that he recognized from the 1950s, a similar device of sorts with that. And he's kind of concerned. He's like, we need to get the hell out of here right now, because you know something bad's about to happen. Just then, a Monarch chopper arrives with Tim there. However, it just so happens that the spot they were at has Godzilla, who emerges out of the ground, very reminiscent of his appearance in Mothra vs. Godzilla. So he emerges out of the ground at one point, even makes eye contact with Kate and the group, and I just love this simple moment of him coming out of the ground. Just feels godlike. There's something epic about him. The effects look fantastic. He rises out of the ground. The chopper that Tim was on also goes down because they're really too stupid to kind of back up while Godzilla's getting up. I mean, they kind of brought it on themselves. They were just all kind of in shock and awe. Like, I mean, when you see Godzilla, you're just frozen with kind of fear and just wonder and awe because of something so, I mean, godlike, right? It's something out of this world when you see Godzilla there. I mean, I'd kind of be the same way too. I'd see Godzilla, I'm like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, but you're also in wonder and awe that such a creature like this exists. So his chopper goes down, We don't find out what happens to him, but I assume he's probably alive, and in the next episode, he'll probably meet up with Kate, Kentaro, and May. So his chopper goes down thanks to Godzilla spikes. Makes me wonder why they didn't just back out in the first place. Also, seeing Godzilla in Africa is really cool. There's a moment with Kate where she looks at him. She doesn't like panic. She just freezes, and she's like, "He saw me." And then Kurt's like, "Yeah, he saw all of us," which is a really cool kind of moment because it's Godzilla, right? I mean, instead of screaming that, she's just in wonder and awe. But Godzilla didn't attack her or anything. He kind of went off and away. Makes me wonder if she's going to have a similar arc to like Mark Russell in the King of the Monsters, if you will, where his resentment towards Godzilla kind of shifts towards admiration and understanding that Godzilla, he's not necessarily caring too much about people. He's just an animal trying to set things right with the planet, if you will. So after that incident, Shaw tells the team they need to go after Godzilla and find out where he's going before Monarch does, and plans on using the map. Kate says they can't stop him, and then Shaw reveals to the group he's trying to help him, as in Godzilla. He tells the group they go with him, they'll know everything, but Kate wants no part of it. Same with May and Kentaro, and they want to go after Hiroshi. Shaw was disappointed in them, but he and Duvall continue their pursuit of Godzilla and following where he's going. So I like that angle of Shaw being like, stop him, I'm trying to help him, because he knows that Godzilla was the sole reason that San Francisco kind of survived. So maybe he wants to kind of do something similar to Serizawa in a way, of like maybe helping Godzilla as the means to kind of take out these other titans, if you will. I don't exactly 100% know for sure just yet. I mean, because like a few episodes ago, he was talking about Monarch's best plan was just let him fight in that. So like, what does Shaw really want? He obviously wants to save lives based on what he's been doing, but like what exactly are his end goals, if you will, to kind of stop all this stuff? So only time will tell. So the group separates, if you will. Kate, May, and Kentaro go their separate ways. May reveals the truth that she sold them out because she wanted to go home to her family. She explains that she had to run, and then the episode ends with them all kind of angry at each other. Not the strongest of cliffhangers, but this episode did remain my favorite overall. So I do wonder too, like, why didn't the trio just stick with Shaw and Duvall? Because obviously they got the map, and Hiroshi has been where these titans have been emerging, and he seemed to have that little titan luring phone device, if you will, the titan phone, I'm just going to kind of dub it. Why didn't they just stick around with them? Now they're just kind of going off on their own, and where are they going to find their dad, if you will? So many questions. Like, why not just go with them for right now? Because obviously it seems like their paths are kind of intertwined together, but hey, we got to have some tension. We got to separate the group before they all come back together. So very exciting stuff. This is my favorite episode of the series so far. We get more Godzilla, we get more flashback stuff, we get more Kurt Russell, and as I said in plenty of these other videos, the more Kurt Russell, the better. Always appreciative of that stuff. They built up the mystery a little bit more. Now we're at the next episode. We're supposedly going to go into May's past, so now we'll know the stuff about May. We're going to have Duvall and Shaw following Godzilla's path and trying to find Hiroshi, which makes me wonder why the group didn't just go with him, because obviously Hiroshi has some connection to where Godzilla's going. Or maybe not. I don't know. It's a big mystery. Also, Hiroshi, really terrible dad in a lot of ways. He doesn't even let his family know he's alive or whatnot. I can't wait for that confrontation with their dad. So eventually you're going to have this reunion and kind of talk things out. So that's something I'm really excited about. So the love triangle angle in the past, I'm kind of iffy about in some ways. I don't want a big reveal to be where Shaw is really Hiroshi's father in some way. I know he said Hiroshi was like a son to him, but I don't want that. I think that would kind of hurt things about the show. So keep Bill and Keiko's thing real. Keep Hiroshi as their kid, because I think that would kind of hurt things if we had some sort of dumb reveal like that. That's just in my humble opinion. So we got that going on there. And also, my number one thing right now, do not kill off Lee Shaw. Lee Shaw has cemented himself as the best character in the Monsterverse through these first 6 episodes. I don't want to see Lee Shaw killed off. If you have to kill off any character, do not make it Lee Shaw. But I feel like something bad will probably happen to him in the show to kind of give that emotional hook towards the end, and I don't want it. I like Shaw too much. I mean, the flashback stuff and the current present day stuff, great, fantastic character. Don't want anything bad to happen to him. I'm excited to see more about Duvall now that we've revealed her to be Sandra Brody's sister. Perhaps other Brody family members will appear in the show. Maybe 4, maybe not. I don't know. I think it's kind of a neat little tie-in, and not everybody who is too well-versed within the Monsterverse may not have caught that. But for me, it was a really cool little nod and something that genuinely surprised me. So I'm excited to see where the next episode brings. We'll see what Godzilla does in the next episode. I'm sure he'll probably have some sort of action bits. I've heard rumblings of a potential Toho monster appearing in the series. We know Godzilla's going to fight the Iron Dragon at one point, but is that going to be saved for the last episode, or are we going to have to wait for other things? I don't exactly know, but this was a really good episode. Really kind of helped get the show, like, it was more exciting than the last two. I mean, the last two, I understand their purpose in that, and I still liked them overall, but they definitely were the weakest episodes of the series. But this episode got things back on track. Like I said, bringing the 50s crew back into things just made it all the more exciting, and I'm really ready for next week's episode. I can't wait to see what happens there. I hope we get more 50s flashback stuff as well, because like I said, I really missed the 50s stuff the last two episodes, and having it back just really helped elevate things a little bit more, because there's a lot more focus on the 50s this time around than there has been in the last few episodes. So I actually wouldn't mind a full episode set in the 1950s, but I don't think we'll probably get that, but only time will tell. So anyways, what did you think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 6? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Post your comments down below. Be sure to share this video with your friends. All of that other fun stuff. And I got some other stuff going on in terms of videos, but want to get this one out here. So look forward to all this stuff. I can't wait to talk about next week's episode. This episode was great. Best episode of the series so far. And as always, take care now. Bye-bye then. And I will see you all in the next video. Peace. What's going on YouTube? JT here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. This is going to be a review on episode 7, also known as Will the Real May Please Stand Up? This one's directed by Hiromi Kamada and written by Mariko Tamaki, who I've actually talked about on this channel before when I've covered various issues of Detective Comics, when she covered that like 2 years ago or whatnot, before Review.to took over it. But for those who don't watch those videos, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about. Go check out some of my DC Comics books videos. But anyways, so this episode aired last week. I'm actually recording this before the new episode's supposed to drop tonight. I like to get this out of the way and kind of speculate before I go into the new episode. So by the time this video goes up, the newest episode will have already aired and stuff. So I'm probably going to post both of them simultaneously, or I'll get this one up and then I'll work on editing the next one. But I like to kind of do these videos before I get to the next episode, because that's part of the fun speculation aspect. But let's quickly summarize what happened in the episode. So the episode opens up, and we see that Tim is the only survivor of the crash. When those helicopter pilots saw Godzilla coming out of the ground, they stupidly decided not to get out of the way. As he's doing this, they're all kind of frozen. But Tim is the only survivor, and then he somehow walks all the way from where he was at in the middle of the desert to the airport where they all kind of end up at. So Tim's there, and we also see a bit of a frustrated Kentaro with the stuff and the situation with May. He's still arguing, Kate's still arguing. There's so much arguing and bickering between these groups. And Kate questions, hey, where's May been? She's been in the bathroom for like 40 minutes. He's like, I don't know, you're the one who told her to get lost, basically, because you were frustrated and angry at her. And then we see that May ends up getting kidnapped by her former employers, which we'll learn about later on in the episode. And then we also have Kentaro, and that they also run into Tim, who makes it to the airport where they're all at, and they have their conversations. Kentaro pulls Kate aside so they can have a little conversation. Now he doesn't want to find his dad, and it's getting a little bit annoying with this stuff. It's like, oh, we want to find him, but then I don't want to find him. I actually feel the most sympathy for Kentaro out of the new 3. I mean, May's been kind of angry. I mean, you'll find out and understand why she did what she did, although she probably could have utilized the whistleblowing act or whatever. I feel like she could have done something a little bit different than what she did, and she would have been okay if there was some sort of illegal activities going on. But we come to find out that the company she works for is also doing some dealings with the government. And this episode does showcase a bit of interesting world building. So we learn May's past, and we also get like 2 big major things happen in this episode, which we'll get into in a second. So they do their thing. Tim gets a call from Verdugo. His rant is probably my favorite part of the episode, just his frustrations with Verdugo and Monarch. He's trying to do this thing. He wants to make a deal with the Randa kids in order to help them free their friend, and they're going to help them lead it to Shaw, if you will. So elsewhere, Shaw and Duval are taking over Outpost 88 in Alaska and all of its resources. Barnes, who was in a previous episode, warns Verdugo about it. What I also like, too, is Shaw never forces anybody to do anything. He's like, we're taking over this base. You have a choice. You can either leave, or you can kind of get with the program, if you will. But he's not, like, threatening anybody, because his mission is to stop the next G-Day. And you'll find out what he does later on in the episode. So I like Shaw. Like I said, Shaw's my favorite character in the Monsterverse at this point. In terms of human levels, in terms of monsters, it's Godzilla, and then I guess you got to go Kong in second place, given his character development and such. But anyway, so they're doing that, and then so Tim, Kate, and Kentaro end up finding May's home, saying they're in town for some sort of manga convention, And we also get a confirmation that Akira Toriyama exists in the Monsterverse. I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan, so I kind of like that nod. And plus, with the way Godzilla's evolving in the new Empire, it looks like Super Saiyan Rose. So after this, we learn about Mei's past and that her real name is actually Cora Mateo. She's working for a company known as AET, also known as Applied Experimental Technologies. So she was hired on, and her code was utilized for some sort of cybernetic experiments. And as we're going into this episode, I'm starting to theorize cybernetics. Coding. This has to be tied into there's only one organization that we've seen in the Monsterverse that really kind of deals with that stuff, and eventually we do get that reveal, which I did like. So she found out how some of her code was being used for some sort of illegal animal testing with neurolinks and stuff like that, and so she destroyed years of research, and that's what she did. That organization also was interested in learning more about these Titans. So Tim, Kate, and Kentaro trigger a false Titan alert in order to kind of rescue Mei from AET, but Mei decides to stay, and because she doesn't want to be utilized as a spy for Monarch and try to stay behind. So then they actually get in for help from Verdugo, if you will. They make some sort of deal. Monarch gets Mei freed, and then AET, also known as we come to find out at the end of the episode, is Apex Cybernetics. That's right, Apex exists in the Monsterverse. This is kind of how that initial relationship between them and Monarch began. They're going to try and find all this information about Titans, like what creates something. So I like the world building aspect by utilizing Apex, if you will. So after that's done, AET pretty much rebrands as Apex. Now, Mei did mention, or Cora, if you will, mentioned Walter's name. So when the name dropped out, I'm like, is that really who I think it is? So we got that aspect. Also, she reunites with Kentaro and Kate, if you will. You see Kate and her kind of hugging and clinging and all sorts of stuff. And the part that kind of made me laugh, it was unintentionally funny. You see them hugging and stuff. They pan over to Kentaro, and I feel so bad for this guy. We are watching this man get cucked right before our eyes. He has to watch his ex-girlfriend pretty much getting hooked up with his long-lost half-sister, if you will. And this dude is just getting humiliated every turn. His dad pretty much abandoned him. He's the only one who's not a cheater. He's got it bad. Like, I feel so bad. Like, it's painful watching this thing for this guy. But, so we got that aspect. And then at the end of the episode, Shaw and his team destroy some sort of rift between the surface world and the Hollow Earth. It seemingly kills the Frostbark Titan, and then he starts chanting, "Yes!" And he's cheering. So it seems Shaw's plan is he's going to use explosives. He's going to destroy all the rifts into Hollow Earth, therefore kind of sealing it up. So not a bad plan, all things considered. Also kind of helping Godzilla, if you will, in some fashion. So he's trying to save lives, and he's trying to destroy these rifts to Hollow Earth because he knows what's down there. So maybe not necessarily my favorite episode overall of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, but I did think it had some good, interesting world-building stuff. Also, Verdugo and Tim make Monarch public. That's the other big thing that happens in here. That's right before the ending episode, if you will. So Verdugo publicly announces Monarch to the rest of the world. So this is how Monarch first went public, and this is also the episode that explains how Apex and Monarch kind of became tied together, if you will. So some interesting world-building stuff. Those are the two most important aspects of it, because the stuff when you jump from King of the Monsters to Godzilla versus Kong, there is a bit of a leap in logic. You're kind of wondering, like, where did this Apex organization come from? It just kind of came out of nowhere, but this is kind of the building blocks that establish that. So there's some good aspects with that in the episode. The stuff with Kentaro, I feel so bad for this guy, but there's also some of that kind of annoying stuff where it's like, oh, well, I don't want to find Dad now, and I want to do this and all that, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, oh my God. I feel like each and every one of you, each episode, just kind of gives up at a point, then they kind of get right back into it, and it's a little bit annoying at some points, but May's stuff is done with her family. Now she's working the group. Now they're going to kind of come together with Shaw, hopefully in the next episode. And the most unfortunate thing, once again, is we don't get 50s flashbacks in this episode. So this isn't one of my favorite episodes this season. As I've come to realize, any episode that does not have the 50s crew is one of the weaker episodes in the series. I mean, we had this one. We had episode 5, and I think there may have been one more off the top of my head that didn't really focus much on the 50s crew. It was episodes 4 and 5 that didn't focus on it. 4 was a little bit better, I think, or 5 was. I don't know. But 4, 5, and 7 are the weakest of the season so far, mostly because you don't have the 50s crew. And the 50s crew are kind of my favorite, outside of Kurt Russell in the present day. And although Tim kind of was probably the main highlight of this episode for me. Not much Titan action, but we did get some important world-building answers about how Apex tied into Monarch, and we also got the reveal of how Monarch became public knowledge to the world. So not much else to say about this thing. I'm excited to see where Shaw's plan leads to it, because like I said, it seems like a very logical, reasonable thing to do. Destroy the rifts between the surface world and the Hollow Earth. Although, what will the repercussions of that be? So many questions. I'm excited to see the new episode. So As soon as this video ends, I'm pretty much just going to wait a few more minutes and wait for the new episode to drop, and we'll see how that goes from here. But anyways, yes, a much quicker video this time around. I don't have much else to say about this thing, other than the Apex reveal and Monarch revealing itself to the world and finally finding out about May's past and her true heritage. Not one of my favorite episodes this season, but it still had some good elements to it. Kentaro, I feel the most sympathy for that man. He is just, it's just not working out well for this guy. But anyways, what did you think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters Episode 7? Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit that bell for notifications, all other fun stuff. And I will see you all in a review on Episode 8, probably sometime within the next day or so when I'm uploading this video. But all right, as always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace. What's going on, YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. In this video, we're going to be talking about Episode 8, known as Birthright. This is the final episode of 2023. We only have 2 more episodes left of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I think they're going to probably do a second season, but it hasn't been outright 100% confirmed / greenlit until this season ends. So hopefully we do get a second season, because I have quite enjoyed myself watching this show. I assume the season probably won't drop because they still got to film it, I'm sure, and probably write it. I'm sure they have a whole big thing planned out for a couple season arcs, but if they're going to do something, I assume it'll probably come in like 2025 at the earliest, based on my predictions. But anyway, so this episode's known as Birthright. I thought it was a big improvement over Episode 7. Now, Episode 7 had some good world-building stuff. We learned how Apex became connected to Monarch and how Cora, or May's name was really Cora. We also saw how Monarch became public to the world, and we see more of what Shaw's been trying to do. He's trying to destroy these rifts between the surface world and Hollow Earth, if you will, so that all these other Titans don't keep coming through and cause another G-Day instant with all the gamma ray spikes, if you will. He's trying to help Godzilla, but maybe his methodology isn't really going to work. But his heart's in the right place, if you will. So, per the usual, I'm going to go ahead and recap what happens in the episode. I'll start with the 50s and then go into the 2015 stuff. But the opening of the episode kind of ties both together, and then we get the credits. So let's go ahead and get started. So the opening of the episode has Keiko and Bill talking to each other. They mention about having not been home for a while, and they want to be home for Hiroshi's birthday. And then it cuts to Shaw reminiscing as he's driving into present-day Kazakhstan, where Keiko ultimately died. So he was thinking back to the moment before it all kind of went haywire, if you will, what we saw earlier on in the episode in 1959. I think it was the first or the second episode. And then the credits roll. So now Shaw is back in Kazakhstan. He wants to do the same thing he did in Alaska, destroy another portal, and we'll see where it goes from there. So starting with the 1950s stuff, it opens up with Lee, Bill, and Kate talking to this really douchey military guy named Hatch, the guy who ultimately got control of Monarch when Shaw decided not to go for that budgetary meeting because he was worried about the safety of Keiko, which ultimately kind of cost him control in the end, if you will, at that point in time. So Hatch is trying to take military funds away from Monarch and push them into other things. It's the 1950s, it's the Red Scare and all that other stuff going on. He's asking why Monarch needs money, and then he said some nasty things about Keiko, and then Bill almost snapped and tried to fight him, which is pretty good. I like Bill standing up for her in that way. Shaw's trying to be a little bit more level-headed, but even he's like, you're kind of out of line, dude, and being a bit of a douche. I mean, the first time you see this guy, I think it was Episode 6, he just came across as a true D-bag, and Shaw was trying to be like this guy who's in between. He's trying to be professional in some ways, but he's also trying to be a little bit clever because he's trying to look out for his team's best interests and other things as well. So Lee did what he could to keep Bill and Keiko from being thrown out, and then he ultimately gives them an ultimatum. He also talks about bringing up the truth to Puckett about how Godzilla is still alive, but the other two shut him down because Keiko doesn't want them to build another bomb to take out Godzilla. But in Shaw's defense, they're already focusing on a new enemy anyways, so if we're going to lose funding, we better tell them that our biggest weapon did not do anything against this creature. So I understand his point of view, and I understand her point of view. I always like when you get that perspective in a TV show. So he asks them to put together some sort of map in order to present things in some sort of data. He gives them 3 days to string something together about why Monarch needs to exist, because it's on the line right now. If they don't get this funding, Monarch is over with. So he brings up some points there. Then Keiko and Bill have a nice scene together, and they're talking to each other. Keiko appreciated Bill standing up for her, and she talks about how she had some stuff going on in her past that she didn't tell him about, but Bill reveals that he didn't care. He knows what kind of person he is, and he trusts her after she didn't leave him to die on the Lawton, which during this time, Shaw's been secretly kind of listening in as well. So Bill is looking at the map. We see a little bit of time has passed within the 3 days, I assume, because he's kind of a little bit of a pig. There's ants flying around, and ants kind of crawl over the map and crawl through a hole in the map, and that's where he ultimately realizes where the Titans are going, into some underground realm, if you will, based on the data that he's accumulated. Something kind of cuckoo crackpot theory, if you will, but something he believes in, where the Titans are truly at, somewhere inside of Hollow Earth. So he then goes to Keiko's house to tell her what happened. She tells her to be quiet, and we ultimately find out that she has a son already. Her son is named Hiroshi, which we know later on, who was not the biological son of Lee Shaw or Bill Randa, which I am appreciative of the Shaw thing, because I didn't want another cheater angle like we saw in the present day. I feel like we kind of have enough of that in this show. But she reveals that the reason she kind of fled to this country in the first place was for more financial opportunities, and she couldn't bring him in just yet until just a few months ago, and she was kind of hesitant to say something. Hatch knew about it, and he was kind of lingering that over her head, if you will, and she's a little bit worried about her son, but Bill tells her he's got her back, and she doesn't have to raise her son alone, and she didn't want to tell him about it, but ultimately she's kind of glad that Bill knows about it, and you see kind of the compassionate side of Bill Randa. He ends with her holding her hand, which is laying the foundation of their eventual marriage and connection. So I like the stuff between the two of them. They didn't really kiss or anything like that. There was a sense of charming likability with these two together. Bill just kind of comes across as that type of guy. I assume he's going to change after she passes on. I think we'll probably get the fallout of that in episode 9. But it was a nice little scene with them together. I buy their relationship a little bit more and more, because a lot of it was leaning towards her and Shaw, but now we're shifting the focus between her and Bill. So we'll see where that goes from there. And then afterwards, Shaw confronts Puckett. He goes over Hatch's head and tells Puckett the truth about how Godzilla is still alive, which wasn't in the file that Hatch presented to him about Monarch. And I think it's kind of funny how he goes over Hatch's head, and I think this is ultimately how Shaw may come into power. But it came at a price. Monarch was about to be shut down, so he had to reveal the truth about how Godzilla is truly alive. But he also said that this is the research done by Keiko Miura and Bill Randa, their importance within the organization, why they need to be here and stuff. So he was ultimately looking out for them, and he just told Puckett what he needed to say to keep Monarch afloat. I'm sure that's going to backfire him with his friends, but they have to understand he had to tell them. So I like Shaw. Shaw is my favorite character in the Monsterverse in terms of the human stuff. So that concludes the 1950s flashbacks. Then we head back to 2015, and as I mentioned earlier on in the video, if you will, Shaw was off doing his thing. He's heading to Kazakhstan, where Keiko initially died, and then the trio, Kentaro and May, arrive with Tim at Monarch headquarters. We see that Tim works in the basement, which is in Bill Randa's old office. He's like, "This is your legacy." He shows in the main Monarch room. We find out that Shaw has been destroying rifts, which depleted one area, but the gamma ray spikes, that was shifted to somewhere else, where the pressure was being relieved in one fashion. Like let me put it this way. Say you poke a hole in something and air comes out, right? If you poke multiple holes, the pressure will come out kind of more evenly in different areas. But if you seal up one way, more pressure is going to kind of come out another way. And that's basically what's happened with these Hollow Earth rifts, if you will. The energy has to be expelled in some sort of fashion with these rifts. If you're going to destroy one area, it's just going to come out somewhere else, or perhaps add more pressure to these other areas, potentially leading to more Titans rising up through it. So it's kind of an unwinnable scenario. There's a bit of a gray area. Does this really going to work destroying these rifts, or is it ultimately going to cause more problems? You don't 100% know for sure, although based on some of the data they're presenting here, it seems like Shaw's plan is ultimately going to backfire him, but his heart's in the right place, if you will. So they ultimately figure out that he is in Kazakhstan, and so they send a team there to figure out what's going on. Kentaro also questions why do they have to do something, but Kate reassures him he's kind of just had enough based on all the stuff that's happening. So they end up having to Kazakhstan, where they run into Shaw. They also see another portal into the Hollow Earth. That's where Keiko ultimately had died or disappeared years later. We'll get into that in a second. Duvall's there. She points a gun at Tim's team, and then Shaw comes out to ask Kate to talk with him, but only her, though. And then probably my favorite scene in the modern time stuff, you have a conversation between Kate and Shaw, and he mentions you looked into his eyes. He's not just some mindless, destructive force. He knows what he's doing. So we see that Shaw knows there's another world down there that isn't ours, and he has in fact been there. So this is before GVK, so Shaw has somehow been inside Hollow Earth. We'll probably find out more of the results of that in the next episode. And he realized that Godzilla isn't really here necessarily to hurt us. He's just kind of keeping our world in check and kind of keeping theirs in check. He won't attack unless provoked. He's just trying to keep things in balance, if you will. He's trying to seal it off in order to prevent the next G-Day type incident. That's why he's trying to help Godzilla and make it a little bit easier for him in the process. Kate tells him the data she learned along the way. Shaw doesn't fully believe in it because Monarch likes to cherry pick their data. All they do is study data and then sit back and study it again. They're doing absolutely nothing to prevent the next G-Day. And he's very valid in his points there. They're really doing... Sure, they're researching Titans and all this other stuff, but what are they really doing to stop the next G-Day event? Nothing. He's trying to do something. He's trying to take action. All this indecisive nature ultimately led to somebody he really cared about kind of dying. So you understand his point of view. He's doing this all based on belief and to some degree atonement over what happened with Keiko in the past. This whole plan he could have could either save the world or destroy it. There's some uncertainty to it, which makes it all the more interesting in my eyes. So Shaw activates the detonator. May then seemingly falls to her death as a fully grown endoswarm titan comes out through the ground to attack. Shaw grabs a hold of Kate, who's starting to fall in, which is very reminiscent of what happened with Keiko Mira. Although this time Shaw ultimately falls in with Kate, leaving us on the cliffhanger ending as they all fall into some sort of rift to Hollow Earth, and we'll see what happens from there. Although in Godzilla vs. Kong, when they travel with the heat vehicles, maybe this portal is a little bit different than the one that they travel to in Antarctica, but the pressure kind of made them like puke and do all sorts of crazy things, or maybe there's something different about specific portals to Hollow Earth. I don't exactly know, but it is a very interesting and exciting cliffhanger. But it also makes me wonder, if Keiko was dragged down into Hollow Earth like that, is there the potential that she is still alive down there as we speak? Now, that would be a heck of a reveal. Again, I don't exactly know. There's 2 episodes left, but it wouldn't really surprise me at this point because I don't expect them to kill off May, Shaw, and Kate all within one specific episode right here. It just, I don't know, it just feels like it's just a cliffhanger for the sake of a cliffhanger, but who knows what'll happen. I know the next episode we're going to find out more about the past stuff. I don't want Shaw to die. He is my favorite character within the series, and the MonsterVerse has a tendency to kill off the best characters. Look at 2014, they killed off Bryan Cranston, King of the Monsters. They killed off Serizawa, although Serizawa's death, I think, was extremely well handled, and that's my favorite scene in the MonsterVerse as of right now. It's a very powerful moment between Godzilla and the human, a very tender moment, which you don't really get to see all that often. So, at least when Serizawa went out, he went heroically. Bryan Cranston just unfortunately passed away within the first 30 minutes of that movie. But, like I said, Episode 8, I think, was a big improvement over Episode 7. We find out more about Shaw's plans. We understand why he's doing what he's doing, and his motivation and his heart's in the right place. You get why Duval is on his side, because he's trying to prevent the next G-Day. Look what happened to her sister because of all the stuff that Monarch knew, because her sister was Sandra Brody. So I like that aspect. I like what Shaw's doing here. And now, with the last 2 episodes, I expect the show to kick even more into high gear now that the team's kind of back together. And also, where the hell is Hiroshi in all this? We saw him briefly in episode 6, and then he kind of vanished and disappeared. I want to see more of this guy. Where is he off to? Is he going to show up in these different places right now? How is he getting around without anybody tracking him or finding him or whatnot? I don't know, because it feels like we sometimes skip around too much. Like at the end of episode 6, Godzilla walked off into the desert, and then we didn't really see him again. Where is he at? Is he going to appear through another Hollow Earth portal? Are they going to run into Hiroshi there? Who knows? It's all up in the air, ambiguous stuff, but I am excited. Now, finding out that Keiko was in fact a widow, I think makes it kind of interesting in some ways. I'm glad that it's not going to be one of those things where her biological son is Lee Shaw's son. I think that would have kind of hurt things a little bit. I'm tired of the cheating angle stuff. I don't really want that with the 50s crew. We already have that with Kate and her dad. We don't really need that with Keiko, Bill, and Lee Shaw as well. So it is what it is, I suppose. But anyways, what did you think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 8? Did you like it? Is this one of your favorite episodes of the season? I liked it. Is it my favorite episode? I still say episode 6 is my favorite so far. But now that we're getting into episodes 9 and 10, I feel like the excitement is ramping up. We'll probably get a little bit of Hollow Earth exploration in the next episode. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen. and perhaps, potentially, the return of Keiko Randa, if you will, based on what happened, because Shaw seemingly didn't really age much. We'll probably get an explanation that the gamma rays are somewhere prolonging his aging in some capacity. That's my theory. That's why I think the Titans are living as long as they are. I don't know, there's so much mystery and excitement around it, and I just can't wait to see what the next 2 episodes bring us. We're almost to the end. I know some people have seen it because they somehow get press screeners or whatever. Why don't I get that? You know what I mean? I've covered Godzilla stuff for so long on my channel, yet I never get these advanced screeners for these types of episodes, and it's really frustrating. I want to see them early. It's not fair. But at the same time, there's that fun excitement along watching this stuff with everybody else. So who knows what'll happen next. But anyways, what did you think of the episode? Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to your channel for more content, hit that bell for notifications, all that fun stuff. That's all I got to say for right now. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Until next year, Monarch, peace out. What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Episode 9, known as Access Monday. This one is written by Matt Fraction and directed by Andy Goddard. This is the penultimate episode of Season 1. They haven't officially announced Season 2, so, I mean, it could be the second to last episode. I don't exactly know, but given that it's consistently ranking as Apple TV's highest show, I assume they're probably going to do a second season. But let's go ahead and talk about this one. This is the episode that I feel like changes everything in terms of the Monsterverse and opens up a whole new can of worms and possibilities and to places I never really would have expected the Monsterverse to kind of go, given the previous lore that's been established. This one changes things quite a bit. Like, this is quite crazy with the stuff that happens in it. Even the title of the episode kind of reveals that. We don't visit the Hollow Earth in this. We are introduced to a whole new world in general. This new world, it's not the Hollow Earth that we know in Godzilla vs. Kong. This is a world between worlds, if you will. It's known as the Access Monday. Now, what the Access Monday is, it's basically a realm between realms. And this episode goes full interstellar with the various time dilations given the area that they're at. This also goes to explain why Shaw looks the way he does. It's not necessarily that it prolonged his aging. It's that he had kind of the interstellar effect where he, in his pocket of time, he was spent a week in this Access Monday plane. But in reality, 20 years had passed in the surface world, given how time and that works. Not sure how the science and all that is, but it's just some crazy, wacky science in that. But basically, like, 1 week for him was 20 years someplace else. So it's kind of like Interstellar, the way time works in different areas and stuff. So I thought that was a crazy reveal. I kind of expected Hollow Earth energy to prolong his aging. That was initially my theory. But going into this thing and seeing this example, this kind of changes things like so much with all the unique possibilities they can now do. It also goes on to explain why they were able to survive going through these rifts from the surface world into the in-between worlds, because in Godzilla vs. Kong, it was very clearly established that they needed the Hollow Earth aerial vehicles, or the heaves, to make it down to the main Hollow Earth, and time functions basically the same way within the Hollow Earth as it does on the surface world, if you will. But in the Access Monday, things are a little bit different in terms of gravity and all the portals and stuff, and a human can seemingly survive going through one of these rifts, as opposed to what we saw in Godzilla vs. Kong, where the gravity would just implode them, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and summarize things. And also, Sean was right about one thing after kind of talking about it, and I think it was the last video, one of my theories about Keiko being potentially alive actually came to be true. So let's go ahead and get into discussing this thing. This kind of jumps around at different time periods. So I'm going to summarize the episode, give my overall final thoughts, and my excitement for the final episode, if you will. So the episode opens up in a Monarch test site in Kansas in 1962, known as Operation Hourglass. We see Bill taking care of Hiroshi. Shaw is his Uncle Lee. We can see a little bit of the bond and how they took over caring for this kid after his mom seemingly died. Shaw then leaves him his lucky pocket knife, and then they put together an expedition to go into what they think is Hollow Earth, if you will. So they're going to use a Titan as bait to kind of piggyback off it and head into what they think is Hollow Earth. Given the rift is unstable, the Titan's able to kind of stabilize it, and they're able to piggyback off it. So they lure it with baits, and then they drop in, and also it's kind of the last time Lee and Shaw are ever going to see each other, and it's kind of a shame. I really like the dynamic between these two, and really grew to care about their friendship over the course of the show. However, things start to go wrong during the mission with the rift. Bill gets hit in the face with some sort of energy surge, which I assume is what's going to age him, because in 11 years, he's supposed to go from this to John Goodman in Skull Island, where he ages substantially. So I'm going to assume that this energy surge is what causes him to rapidly age over the course of a decade, or just the simple fact of being a single father ages him. It's just kind of a funnier explanation. But that happens, and the operation goes wrong. Shaw is seemingly gone. And then afterwards, Bill Randa has a scene with Puckett where Puckett tells him, due to the loss of life in Operation Hourglass, that funding to Project Monarch is set to be cut entirely. Puckett is clearly sorry for what happened. He mentions older men declare war, but his youth that must fight and die. I actually like how they humanize Puckett here. And he tells him that given Hiroshi lost his mom and his uncle, Bill Randa's focus should be on raising that child. Don't put him through any more of this hardship, as opposed to going down this path of obsession, with you will. But given what happened to Keiko and Lee, Bill he can't let it go. And it's kind of sad, given all the stuff that transpires with him. I'm almost bummed now that John Goodman's character died in Kong Skull Island, because they did a really good job fleshing out the younger version of himself. I hope maybe there's some potential way they can work around the continuity to somehow make him alive. I mean, there's been some sort of retcons in this show anyways. For instance, they didn't really call the Titans up until King of the Monsters. Well, that one you can kind of work around. But also, during the Bikini Atoll tests, Godzilla stands up, whereas in the 2014 footage, they just kind of blow it up before he gets fully out of the water. So maybe there could be some way to work around the John Goodman Skull Island thing, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But it would be kind of cool. So we only got one episode left in this series. Also, please don't kill Lee Shaw. That's one of my other big things. So then we cut to a hospital where we see Shaw wakes up in a medical facility of sorts, and he holds a nurse hostage asking for Bill Randa. He's a little disoriented. This nurse, in fact, turns out to be Emiko and end up being Kentaro's mom. Hiroshi intervenes and stops him. And of course, we get the reveal that is, in fact, 1982 and that Bill Randa has been killed. So the episode, like I said, went full Interstellar here with the whole time dilation aspect. Hiroshi then goes on to talk to Shaw, who tells him what happened. His team was killed by the elements and the Ion Dragon, which we saw attack the Lawton back in the day. Shaw then got sucked into a wormhole and ended up back in the surface world years later. Shaw pleads with Hiroshi that his dad was right about everything, that they need to work together to figure this stuff out. However, Hiroshi tells him that Monarch will remain benevolent and that Shaw is being put somewhere for observation, where he will spend the remainder of his years at. So then Shaw ends up in this retirement home, which we saw earlier on in the season, and he looks out and he's kind of out of it until he sees the Honolulu attacks that took place, and then he kind of wakes back up, if you will. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Dark Knight Returns animated movies, where the Joker's kind of out of it until he sees Batman, then he kind of reactivates, if you will. So I feel really bad for this guy. He lost so much of his time. Hiroshi grew a little bit of resentment towards him given what happened. I mean, he's glad to see that he's alive, but at the same time, he doesn't really want to spend as much time with him. He doesn't try to help get him out of there. He's just kind of kept for observation, kind of left to die in a peaceful retirement home, if you will. So it also goes to explain why Hiroshi was a little bit cold towards everyone. He grew up, given his dad grew obsessive over this stuff, and he lost his family, and he's a kid who just was continuously orphaned, and that kind of set the stage for him being as emotionally distraught as he was. I mean, his Uncle Lee was gone, his dad was gone, his biological father was gone, his mom was gone. This guy's been through a lot, but it still doesn't make way for some of the stuff that he did. He did seem kind of jerky by just leaving his uncle there, given that things went wrong with his mission, if you will. So anyways, after that stuff, in 2015, Kentaro wakes up in a hospital with Tim and Verdugo there they basically tell him all that everyone kind of died. Emiko returns, having not been seen in a while. Seemingly everything is done for them. Kentaro was clearly distraught, wondering when they got to go looking for the other members of his team, if you will, but is told everything is done and that the only thing he can do for them now is live. I also liked how he called them his family, showing that he has grown to care for them. After talking with his mom, he decides to figure things out on his own. He's not just, given Monarch's not going to aid him in this stuff, he's going to figure things out on himself. So he's taking action on his own because he can't rely on anybody. So while this is going on, Shaw wakes up in the new realm known as the Access Monday, a world between worlds, if you will. He finds May down there and reveals to her that he once was down here before and explains his age to her. Kentaro, meanwhile, goes to his dad's office. And then the part that just made me just scratch my head and question so many things, Hiroshi just casually walks in like it's no big deal. The first time I watched this, I couldn't believe it. I was kind of disappointed. This guy just comes across as such an asshole. He just walks in, like his son and his daughter have been looking for them. They think he's dead, but he just kind of walks in like, oh, hey, what's up, guys? It kind of reminds me a little bit of the episode of Seinfeld where Costanza had quit his job and then just casually walks back in like it's no big deal, like he never quit. That's the vibe I'm kind of getting here. It bothered me the first time I saw it, and I've kind of gotten used to it after watching the episode again and letting it sell for me. But the fact that this guy just casually walks in like it's no big deal, like his kids were out there in the desert, didn't seem to care for their safety whatsoever. He comes across as a real asshole to me, and Kentaro rightfully snaps at his dad, given that he's lied to them his whole life, basically, after what he put him and Kate through and all this stuff, and he blames him for Kate's death, if you will. Hiroshi has a breakdown in front of him, and the acting is pretty good here, but Hiroshi is just made out to be a real jerk, if you will. Now, there is some sympathy for some of the stuff that he went through, but the fact that he never told his kids that he was alive this whole time makes him out to be a real asshole, if you will, and Kentaro rightfully snaps at this guy. So Kentaro's actually growing to be probably my favorite of the new, like, modern day leads. I mean, Shaw is still the best, and I'm also kind of growing to like Tim a little bit too. But out of the three new characters like Kate, May, and Kentaro's clearly the best, I think, of the bunch because, yeah, he's been through some stuff, but he's still kind of fighting onward, if you will. Anyways, then we get the ending of the episode where Kate wakes up in the Access Monday, where she is then attacked by a bramble boar, and before a thing can kind of latch on and kind of kill her, she is saved by none other than Keiko, and we end the episode there. So yes, Keiko is alive, seemingly not really aged at all. Who knows how long in terms of her time down there it's been, maybe a few months, if you will, because Shaw was down there for basically a week before he went back to the surface world, but Keiko has been trapped down here maybe a few months because there was a good 50-year time gap, I feel, since she was brought down there, if you will. So many questions, so much excitement. I'm glad she's back. It's kind of something I was predicting based on them going in this riff. I'm wondering, okay, maybe she should be alive here. I was thinking the Hollow Earth energy is what kept them youthful, if you will, kind of like a fountain of youth. But the reveal that it's time dilation really kind of changes things. I would not have expected it, but it's also raising a bunch of questions. Given we have the world between worlds, and if you go back to Godzilla vs. Kong, where he just drills a hole to the center of the earth, just right in the middle of all these crazy rifts, if you will, like what are the consequences of that going to be? I don't exactly know. It's pretty wacky, it's pretty crazy, but I am excited to see where the next episode takes us. So the idea of the Access Monday, I think, is really cool. I didn't expect us to get a new world between world with these things, and there's so many possibilities. For instance, characters maybe we've seen in the past that we thought were dead could come back in some ways. Are they going to integrate some sort of time travel, or is it just going to be pure time dilation? There's a lot of possibilities you can go with in this direction with the whole Access Monday angle, and maybe at the end of the next episode, they end up 5 years later at the events of King of the Monsters, perhaps. I don't exactly know. I just know I'm really excited to see where the show kind of takes things from here, because introducing this whole new world between worlds, the Access Monday, I think adds a whole new excitement to the Monsterverse. It leaves some questions for sure, and it also goes to explain how they were able to kind of survive the portals, if you will, instead of needing the heave vehicles, because it's not quite the Hollow Earth they travel to, it's the Access Monday. So I'm excited to see where the final episode goes. I know Godzilla is going to fight the Iron Dragon. We've seen that in some teaser footage, if you will. Hopefully it's a good, decent amount of time fighting. Now, it doesn't need to be like a 10, 15-minute battle. I need at least 5 minutes of monster fighting in the finale or something like that. I don't want it to be super quick and abrupt. You've kind of teased things a bit. Let's see Godzilla kick some ass. And I'm excited to see where the season finale ends, because I'm sure it's going to be some sort of crazy, wacky cliffhanger. Maybe some other characters we thought were dead will come back. I don't exactly know, but we got 1 week, and we get the finale of Monarch. Then we take a few-month break between Monsterverse stuff, unless you count the Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong comics, and then we jump right back into Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. So I'm excited to see where we go from here, and I'm really looking forward to the reunion between Keiko and Shaw, and when she finds out that Billy is dead, and maybe her son's alive and dead or something like that. I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm ready for the next episode. Give it to me now. That's my mindset with this thing. But anyways, what did you think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 9? What do you think of the whole Access Monday angle with the whole in-between worlds with the surface world and the Hollow Earth? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it just overly complicates and makes things way too crazy and sci-fi wackiness? I don't know. You just let me know. Now that we have this here, who's to say we can't get alien invasions at some point soon in the series? So many questions. Has me excited. Can't wait to see the finale. And I'm wondering where everything will go from there. But anyways, that's all I have to say. As always, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit that bell for notifications. We got one more episode left to cover for Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and then that's that. I don't know what I'll do after that. Maybe I can go back and try and do detailed episode breakdowns for the entirety of the Skull Island anime series, since I just did kind of a spoiler discussion on the whole season because it just dropped all at once. Just for something. I'm on a MonsterVerse kick right now. I want to start diving into these things a little bit more. I'm excited. I can't wait for the new Empire, and I can't wait for the Monarch finale. It's been fun to watch a show weekly for once. And yeah, it would be cool to kind of watch it all at once as opposed to impatiently waiting, but the speculation has kind of made it a little bit more fun for me in a way. So, alright, well, I've rambled on long enough. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out. What's going on YouTube? JT Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. In this video, we're going to talk about episode 10, known as Beyond Logic. This one is written by Chris Black and directed by Andy Goddard, and this is the final episode of season 1, and I'm going to say right out the gate, they most certainly stuck the landing with this one. I thought this was a fantastic closure to season 1. It was emotional, it was epic, and it leaves me excited for where they could potentially go with a season 2. And we get some awesome Godzilla stuff, we get some awesome Kurt Russell stuff, and we get some other awesome stuff too, which I'll get into in a second. But wow, can't believe we're here at the end of this thing. Now, from here on out, it's just going to be Godzilla Kong the New Empire hype, but I really want to emphasize that I think this was the best episode in the show, and I really enjoyed covering Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I enjoyed the show overall. There's certainly some episodes that are weaker than others, and it peaks at certain points, especially with the 50s flashback crew, which was the far more interesting storyline between the present and the past, if you will. But the present stuff did have Kurt Russell, and it did give us this really emotional finale. And well, you know what? Let's go ahead and get talking about it. Let's do what I normally do, summarize these things, and we'll get into final thoughts shortly, because I got a lot to say. But anyway, so episode 10 opens up with Kate meeting her grandmother in the Access Monday, which is basically what we saw at the end of episode 9. And after this, she's a little bit struck by the fact that her grandma is still alive and seemingly hasn't aged a day. And then we immediately cut to the credits. So once the credits are done, we go to Hiroshi and Kentaro having a talk with each other in Tokyo. Kentaro asks him what he was doing, and so Hiroshi explains that he was using the Gamma simulator device to draw out a Titan in order to open a rift to prove that a network of them exists. He didn't know it was going to end up being Godzilla. He did this to prove to his parents that they weren't crazy, and if they weren't treated as such, then they would still be alive in his mind. Kentaro shares some resentment towards his father, but as they continue to talk with one another, his dad tells him that they should work together in order to help find the secret of coexistence between mankind and the Titans so that another G-Day type incident doesn't happen again. So we got that going on. Meanwhile, back in the Access Monday, Keiko explains to Kate that she sent out a signal that she could be found, which is what they saw in the last episode. Then May and Shaw end up fighting their group. This ends up leading to one of the best scenes in the entire show, the reunion between Keiko and Lee Shaw. This scene here, it's just so beautifully done and emotional. Shaw at first is a little hesitant to show her his face and was hiding behind this tree because he knows how this reunion is not going to be easy for her. In Keiko's mind, she's only been down here for 57 days, but as we know, time functions differently within the Access Monday. So in terms of just a matter of moments, she has to process the fact that her husband is dead, her son grew up without her, and one of her closest friends, it turns out, is now an old man. At least with something like Interstellar, McConaughey knew something like this could happen ahead of time, but for her, it comes as a complete surprise. It's a very heartfelt reunion between the two, and we get some really good acting between Kurt Russell and Mari Yamamoto. I'll even admit that I got a little choked up watching it here. It's so beautifully done, so well handled, and one of the most emotionally impactful scenes in the entire MonsterVerse or in any Godzilla film in general, because I like these two characters quite a bit. I love the 50 stuff and, you know, Kurt and her's reunion. It was a very touching scene, and I think we need more moments like this in the MonsterVerse. Like, this is one of my top tier scenes it's just so good. So while this is going on, Kate also reveals to her that she is in fact her granddaughter. So back at Monarch headquarters, we see Tim having a talk with Verdugo about the signal they received, which was Keiko's signal, and how they need to look into it. But Verdugo tells him it isn't a priority due to the possible emergence event going on around the world. Tim has had enough about this. He's sick of Verdugo and her not doing anything about this potential signal going on down there. This was the moment he pretty much just was fed up with Monarch to the point where people could be alive down there and they aren't doing anything about it. He even tells her that Shaw was right about us. We're not really doing enough. We're just sitting on our hands just so it looks like we're doing something. I like how he stands up for himself here. It was a pretty good moment for him. And then we cut back to the Access Monday, where we see Keiko had reconfigured the gamma emitter from Lee's Operation Hourglass ship, which they intend to use as their means to head home. So while that's going on, Hiroshi, Emiko, and Kentaro have a conversation together where Emiko gives Hiroshi back her ring and tells him, despite what he did to her, that their son still deserves to have a relationship with his father. She clearly has a big heart here, and after what Hiroshi did to her was not very cool. Now, on a side note, Kate's mom, Caroline, does not appear in this episode, and if we do get a season 2, I kind of want her and Emiko to meet each other and find ways to get back at Hiroshi for what he did to them both, like, in the next season, if that's at all possible. So anyways, after this, Tim meets up with Kentaro, where they agree to work together with Hiroshi to find out more information about the signal that Keiko had sent out. This inevitably leads to them all working together, but with something that isn't quite Monarch, because after his conversation with Verdugo, and she's like, well, you can either sit back down and stay in your lane, or I'm going to fire you. And he's like, no, screw this. I quit. Granted, a lot of that happened off screen, but Tim had enough of Monarch and all the nonsense that they've been doing, and so he's going to take action because you have some people who are in real trouble, and they got to do what they can to help them out. So I like that, and we'll inevitably see which organization they join at the end of the episode. Back in the Access Monday, Keiko, Lee, Kate, and May take a break from carrying the Gamma Ray Simulator to Lee's ship, and we get a really nice scene that has Keiko and Lee talking with one another. He tells her about how Billy went down swinging and what he did with his Skull Island operation ended up saving Monarch, and he also talks to her about how the world has changed. Nice stuff, some funny moments right there, but some real heartfelt emotions on top of it. So they go there to Lee's ship from his Operation Hourglass mission. When they get there, Keiko is a little hesitant to go back home, given it's a world that she no longer recognizes, but Kate assures her that she still has work to do up there, and she inevitably decides to go with them. So they set up the Gamma device with their intention of luring a Titan to open a rift so they can piggyback their way back home, unknowingly knowing that the Ion Dragon was already down there in the Access Monday. So with the Ion Dragon there, he causes a ruckus. So Shaw goes outside the ship to fix the device, because something was also going through the rift at the same time, which turns out to be Godzilla, who gives one of the coolest entrances of all time, coming through this rift like he's Thanos or something. He ends up fighting the Iron Dragon. While short, it still is pretty cool. Godzilla destroys the shit out of this thing with relative ease. I mean, the Iron Dragon literally had no chance. I mean, he put up a good fight, but Godzilla just... He whoops this thing's ass. I mean, the thing spits acid on his face. Godzilla rips him apart, blasts him with his atomic breath. It's some really cool stuff. And I like, too, that when Godzilla comes through the portal, he seems to notice the group. So, in a way, he kind of knows that they're calling for help to save them, which makes him a little bit more heroic. And I like a good heroic Godzilla moment. It's kind of reminiscent of when he saved Millie Bobby Brown's character in King of the Monsters. So, as the portal starts closing, Lee is running outside the ship trying to get to it, and he kind of sacrifices himself in a way that mirrors what happened to, like, episode 1, where Keiko's trying to hold on to him. She's like, no, Lee, you gotta hold on. He knows that it's too heavy or he can't get in or whatnot, so he has to, like, let go, and he tells her, thank you for giving me this other chance in a way to kind of redeem himself so he can, like, if he does die, he dies peacefully, but his fate is left intentionally ambiguous. Now, we'll get into some speculation. I don't think he's dead, because you don't leave his fate ambiguous if you really wanted to kill him off. If you wanted to kill him off, you would outright show that he is dead. They are leaving it intentionally ambiguous, which tells me that Lee Shaw is going to be trapped in the Access Monday, maybe for quite a while. Perhaps he'll show up in a season 2 of Monarch, or maybe even in Godzilla Kong The New Empire. Wouldn't that be awesome? A surprise Kurt Russell appearance in Godzilla Kong The New Empire. I would love the hell out of that, but I don't know where it's going to end up going. So they end up making it back through the portal and are reunited with Tim, Kentaro, and Hiroshi, who are there waiting for them. The reunion is nice. Kentaro hugs both Kate and May, and he is then introduced to his grandma for the first time, and Hiroshi gets to see his mom once more, which was a nice character moment. It was well done, well handled. Not as emotional to me as the Shaw reunion, because I spent time with Shaw, and I really cared about his character. But it was a nice moment where a son and a mother get to reunite with one another. It was a very touching bit. However, it turns out that when they return, 2 years have since passed, and the group is having been revealed to be working for none other than Apex Cybernetics. And they're not just on any place, they're on none other than Skull Island. Then the season ends with an alarm going off, and the final shot is of King Kong roaring into the camera, very reminiscent of the San Diego Comic-Con footage of that was there for the announcement of Kong Skull Island many, many years ago. So, yes, we got a TV show where Godzilla and Kong appeared in the same episode, which I think is really, really cool and helps set the stage for Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, in a way, if you will. So, there you go. That was Season 1 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Episode 10. Easily, without question, the best episode of the show. I really love this thing. There was a lot of great emotional beats. The reunion between Shaw and Keiko, I thought, like, even without the monster stuff, that's a very good, heavy, powerful stuff. So that's the really compelling human element that I'd like to see more of explored in future MonsterVerse stuff. Like, that moment there was one of my favorite moments, like, in the whole series, without question. I think, like, even if you don't have the monster stuff in here, I think that's a compelling, like, character reunion scene. So Godzilla showing up, kicking ass, although short, was still pretty spectacular. I love the moment where he just walks through the portal, because it's something I haven't really seen Godzilla do before. Emerging through a portal like he's Thanos in Infinity War or Avengers Endgame or something, just walking through, like, nonchalantly. I wish we could have used some of that. I'm sure somebody will edit it together, maybe add Bear McCreary's music in there. But it was just a cool, like, cheerful Godzilla moment that I love more moments like that where I can cheer on Godzilla, so I thought that was kind of special. Really good stuff. Season 1, I thought overall was really solid. Definitely some episodes that were lesser than others. I think the strength of the show was mostly showcased with the 1950s flashback crew. I would have liked to have seen more of them. I don't think the modern characters are quite as good. Now, that's not to say I don't really dislike any of them, because I still like them for the most part, especially, like, you know, Tim. I did like Kentaro, Kekurami a little bit. May still has a lot of work to do if they do get a season 2 to make her more likable, because she's just not quite there yet as a character I care for, and that could change with the second season, because I've seen characters who I haven't necessarily liked in one season really turn things around in another, and that's what I'm kind of hoping for in season 2 if it does get greenlit. So some things I feel like season 2 could potentially go in. I think Lee Shaw is alive. You don't ambiguously leave his fate like that if you're going to kill him off, because he's pretty much just trapped in the Access Mundi. I don't know how long it'll be before he can come back out, but I still say Lee Shaw is still alive, because you just don't leave him on that high note. You can't just get rid of your best character in your show like that. I think for right now, they did it, so if they didn't get a season 2, or if they couldn't really get Kurt Russell to sign on again for another season just yet, they're going to wait to see how it performs. So if he ever wants to come back, he can. I think given the character work and the awesome stuff that he got to do this season, I think he would definitely come back for a second season, or perhaps appear in a new MonsterVerse movie. Yeah, come on, Kirk, come back for another season. You were just the best character by far. So I think Shaw is still alive. I think with season 2, it's going to be a little bit more Kong focused if they inevitably get to it, because they are now on Skull Island. We get some big reveals there with Apex having their own base on there. So they're the ones who I'm sure built the ecosphere, which Kong lives in Godzilla vs. Kong. I know a storm swallows up the island, and there's still some ambiguity in terms of the continuity of how that all works within the MonsterVerse, because I've heard a lot of contradicting things with that, so we'll see that potentially explored. Maybe we'll get to see Camazotz and all that's been showcased in some of the graphic novels, and the storm that inevitably took over the island. We also know how Apex was able to get their hands on some skull crawlers for their Mechagodzilla project, if you will, so that's pretty cool as well. There's a lot that can go on in that 2-year time gap. So, like, how did, like, relationships change over the course of the time? How is Kentaro different? How is Tim different? What do they think about having a rival organization to Monarch in Apex, which does work with Monarch at times, like as we've seen in Godzilla vs. Kong, but for some seemingly sinister stuff with Mechagodzilla. But at the same time, given how Monarch has acted in this series, and how it's been kind of all over the place, we get some of the nittier, grittier side of them. I mean, do you really, like, blame Apex for building Mechagodzilla with all the stuff that's gone on in the world? I don't think so. So that's some pretty interesting stuff. So I want to see which direction they can go in with season 2. We also have the fact that Keiko is going to be a fish out of water, and she's not going to have the same treatment as what happened with Shaw being kept in a retirement home for 20, 30 years, which was just the cruelest thing you could kind of do to this guy, instead of having him out there and learning and doing different things. So you got that going on there. And like I said, I think going to have a bit more of a Kong focus than a Godzilla focus into season 2, but they'll still find ways to work in Godzilla into the series because he was part of the main selling point of the show for a lot of people. And while we didn't get too much Godzilla this season, which, I mean, the show's called Monarch Legacy of Monsters. It's not called Godzilla Legacy of Monsters. It's a show about Monarch, with Godzilla appearing as like a special guest at times. And when he does appear, it is really awesome. And it was also really cool to see Kong at the end. I kind of speculated that was something that was going to happen, but the fact that we got to see a TV show where both Godzilla and Kong appear in the same episode, how can you not smile at that sort of stuff? Like, that gives me a big ooey gooey grin. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. Now, before we close off for this, I do want to give my ranking of all 10 episodes where I go. So in the number 10th place, I'd go with episode 7. With the number 9th place, I go episode 5. In 8th place, I'd go episode 4. In 7th place, I go episode 1. In 6th place, I'd go episode 8. In 5th place, episode 2. 4th place, episode 3. 3rd place, episode 9. 2nd place, episode 6, and in 1st place, I'd put the finale, episode 10, as the top episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. There's a lot of stuff I really liked about it, for sure, in this season, and I'm excited to see where they could potentially go with a season 2. So, they got to greenlight this, and they also got to greenlight season 2 of the Skull Island anime, because while this ending feels a little bit more, I mean, I know where it leads to in Godzilla vs. Kong and all that, and there's, like, I mean, there's a lot of lingering plot threads you could definitely explore in this show. It's a more satisfying finale than the obligatory cliffhanger ending of season 1 of the Skull Island Netflix series. So, Skull Island Netflix, finish off that storyline with at least one more season, and then for this one, I hope we can branch this out into a few seasons, and definitely want to see them bring back Lee Shaw in this, or potentially another movie. Wouldn't that be awesome if he just somehow showed up in Godzilla Kong the New Empire? I really like the show. Definitely some high and low points for sure, but this was a really good time, and it was fun week to week covering a TV show with weekly episodes. And while it is fun to kind of get the binging mentality of all of it at once, I kind of liked having something every single week to kind of look forward to and speculate on again. It's been a while since I've really done that with the show. Not to say that every series needs to kind of do this, but for me, it was pretty exciting to have all those kind of spaced out a little bit. So, it gives me something to look forward to each week, is a new episode of Monarch. It was fun to talk about and speculate and theorize where things could go and talk weekly with different people about it. I had a really good time with this thing. I love the show, and hopefully Apple renews this thing pretty fast, because it's been consistently up there as like Apple's top rated like show. Like when you go to their homepage, it's usually like trending at number 1 for the most part, if not like number 2 or at lowest like number 3 generally since the start of the series. It's only gained more as it's gone on. So, and a lot of people were waiting for it all to end to get Apple TV and kind of binge the whole thing. So lots to look forward to. Now that this show has finally wrapped itself up, I'm going to take a little bit of a Godzilla breather, it seems, while we wait for Godzilla Kong the New Empire, which drops in just over 2 months. That's right, because they moved it up from like 2 weeks earlier, so that's cool for me. I get to see it faster. Hopefully I can get an early screening or something like that, because that would be sweet. And I'm really excited. I can't wait for that movie. So what did you think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 10? What did you think of the season overall? How would you rank the whole series in terms of episode to episode? Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you want to see in season 2? What do you want to see in Godzilla Kong the New Empire? Let's talk about this stuff. Come on, it's been a fun time. But anyways, with that said, thank you so much to everybody who's been tagging along for all of my Monarch Legacy of Monsters reviews. I might do like a compilation video that just kind of combines these all together from like the first episode to the last, and just kind of like add it all together, because I figured, if you haven't seen the episodes, I could just kind of combine them all into one video, and we'll just kind of go from there. So also, does anybody want to see me do episode by episode like coverage of the Skull Island anime? Let me know in the comment section down below, because I did do like a spoiler discussion, but given that's only like 8 episodes and they're much shorter, I feel like I could break them down pretty quickly and then do a video review on each individual episode. I think that'd be kind of fun to do, because I had a really good time covering the Monarch stuff, and I'm still in a bit of a Godzilla mood, and I want to just go and explore more things. So what are you going to do? But anyways, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.